Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. Today is, oh my goodness, it's already July 25th, and this is lesson 6 in the series of the second semester of 2018. Yay, Joelle has tuned in. She's in the chat, and she says, yay, so happy it's Wednesday. I love that reaction. That's fantastic. I feel that way too. And that's also the whole idea that this is intended to be a fun presentation, never something that is laborious or arduous. And even though we might talk about things that are like science-based or that involve math, but it's something that's meant to be fun. And, you know, I do this lasagna dance each day. It's like part of my practice in the same way I feel like if you have a meditation practice or something like that. And I find it to be the most fun and like joyous part of my day. It's never a chore. It's never like, oh, my shoulders go down, I have to dance like a lasagna. I'm like, yay, it's time to dance like a lasagna. So that is what I'm trying to get across to everyone else. That this is like, it's like if you love to play your music, you love to play your instrument, it's like, yay, time to play the piano or play the guitar or whatever it is that is your thing to do. And Flying Rainbow Lasagna is not just for me. It's literally something that I'm wishing to share with as many people as possible. Joelle says, it's always so fun and stretches my mind and imagination. Yes, we are doing like yoga of the perception. You know how like with yoga, it's like, okay, like I'm stretching my arms, I'm stretching my legs, I'm stretching my muscles and tendons. When we come to this class, it's like doing yoga of the perception. So it's beginning of stretching those muscles and integuments and ligaments that are the story of reality, of what we did, how we define reality. So level 1 of today is going to be all about what we define as the inner world and the outer world, and how Flying Rainbow Lasagna brings those two things together. And I have my notes extensively prepared over here, and I'm actually using them. And level 2 is all about, it relates to that too. It's just the advanced, even exponentially expanded level of that understanding. DNA, your DNA is like an antenna and how it connects to the sun and the stars. So beginning with level 1, we're going to start out with my magic whiteboard and drawings about the cell and the cell structure. So this basically, this lecture is, or presentation is, the inner and the outer, the inner world and the outer world. And even to have to, you know, where I'm coming from in describing these two worlds is part of our cosmology. It's part of our cellular history. So before this invention of the cell membrane, so we're talking now like many, many hundreds or thousands or millions of years ago in terms of linear time, there's just a lot of stuff that is amino acids and water and goo. I just call it like stuff. It's just goo. And that was life. That's the stuff of life. It's just like kind of, imagine like slime mold, you know, just a big giant thing that exists, that's alive. And at a certain point, I'm going to use red for this color just so that you can see it. There was the invention of the cell membrane. And so I'm drawing this now. We're very familiar with what a cell membrane looks like. It's just like a big sphere of cells. And once that has been innovated, then we can say there is a distinction between the intracellular goo inside the cell, where I just made blue scribbles, and the extracellular goo, everything that's outside of there. And this is a necessary stage of development, but it's not the end of the journey. It's just one footstep on the journey. So this, once this cell membrane is created, and we are able to create a boundary, essentially, separating the inside from the outside. We used to just have oneness, right? Unity, everything all mushed together. But now, as soon as we create that boundary, what we have is a different set of rules for what is going on or metabolizing inside of the cell, as opposed to what is going on outside of the cell. Like there's all sorts of metabolic processes that are going on out here, where I just drew that blue scribble, but those processes might go at a different pace or have different rules than what is happening in here. And this has everything to do with biological life. You know, like the use of materials, expelling waste products, use of water, and everything like that. So these are all like simple concepts presented, you know, in science class, but this is necessary in order to begin to understand how that relates to our sense of self. Like if I draw a stick figure over here, like here's you, and you, this is the guy with really long legs. Here we go. You are separated from your environment similarly by the envelope of your epidermis and also the envelope of your ego. And your ego is the story or the narrative structure that each one of us develops in infancy or early childhood. And for me, because I'm a walk-in or a cosmic visitor, I developed my ego in chronological adulthood, in my late 20s, the late 20s of this body. But I did the same exact things that everybody does when they're age 1, 2, 3, or 4. Like you figure out what's your name, where do you live, what's your favorite food, what's your least favorite food, what do you like to do, what are your hobbies, what's your favorite sweater, like all of that. That's the narrative structure. Like I'm drawing this wavy line. It's a story that says I'm different from my environment in exactly the same way that this first little cell membrane had to be developed. And then that first little cell said, hey, I'm different from my environment. And now I often jokingly use this tough guy voice. Like the little cell over here doesn't have to care about what's going on outside of it. The little cell is like, hey, I'm a tough guy. I'm looking out for number one. I only got to care about myself. And that is, true to a point. However, we are totally interconnected with our environment. So on the one hand, individuation leads to greater freedom because you can do stuff inside of here that you couldn't do when you weren't separated from everything else. And it means also that you take responsibility for all the things that are going on inside of you, but it is a fiction or a fantasy to say that that one cell, that single cell, or even this individual human is separate from its environment, because it's not. Because the cell membrane, let's choose a totally different color. The cell membrane has all sorts of stuff that goes through, like there's green stuff. You can't see that color. Let's choose a different color. Here, there's green stuff out here, outside of the cell, and the cell membrane, makes little doorways so that green stuff can come inside of the cell. Maybe the green stuff is water or nutrients or, something really vital for life and metabolism. So how about with the person over here? Let's say green stuff is oxygen. Oxygen is outside of your epidermis, but oxygen has to come inside of you and into your lungs and flow all throughout your metabolism in order for you to stay alive. So this idea of being individuated is different from the idea of being separated from one's environment. I'm going to say that again. Individuation is different than separation, because each one of these beings, one single-celled organism or a multi-celled organism in a context, is individual, but it's still connected to its environment. So let's talk about, so we've done, a single cell organism, that's easy to understand, but let's talk about a multicellular organism like you and me, or a dog, or a cat, or a redwood tree, or a horse, or something like that. It's fictional to think that this singular individuated being over here is not connected to its environment. It's absolutely connected. It's connected on the level of microbes. Like everything that's crawling on the skin, the epidermis of this person, is connecting to all of the microbes that are all around it. On the level of atmosphere, which I've already spoken about, on the level of water, like you're breathing it, you're drinking water, you're perspiring water, trees and plants are transpiring water all the time. Like you're connected on the level of water. And when you release excess water through urination, like you're connected to the water system, you're connected to the air around you. How about in the sense of society? You are connected on the level of society. Now I'm going to draw little green squares. Hey, everybody, we live in America. What's little green squares? They're money. Here, let's draw like a money symbol over here. I can't even make my pen work. There's kind of a weird money symbol, but you get what I'm talking about. Money. Hey, where do you get money from? You get money from outside of you. You don't grow money inside of you. It's not like it's not like earwax or some exudation that comes out of your nose. It's not like boogers or something like that. You don't generate your own money. You get money from outside of yourself. Money comes into you as a system, and then you can send money outside of you to someone else. So we are definitely interdependent in terms of society, in order to receive money, which is where we receive our physical resources from in this particular time and place. And if we were in a non-money using society, we would still be dependent upon the other stick figures that surround us in this society or social matrix, because it's like, unless you're living like a pioneer, like one person who takes care of themselves and has like a hermit, has no interaction with any other human being, most people are interdependent upon other human beings. Like this guy over here might make bread, but this guy over here, you know, is able to whatever, grow tomatoes, and then they trade, and then they both have a wonderful sandwich because they have everything that they need to make a sandwich. Like that's, you know, in a more, in a whatever, not a less sophisticated society, let me just drink some water, but in a society that does not use money in the same way we do, people are still interconnected in terms of society. Wait, hold on a second. And wait, I'll go, and let me go back to my face while I do a brief rant. Brief rant, because, you know, I talk on Facebook about different things. And what I talk about here in this class is empirical knowledge. And when I talk with people on Facebook, you know, I'm sharing my personal opinion. And my opinion, you know, might be about political structure or social structure. So I was talking with a particular person who was saying that they did not agree with the ideals of democracy, that they wanted to simply not have anyone else impose their willpower upon them in any kind of political system. And I was trying to get across to that person the idea of interdependence. Like, it is a fiction if that person thinks that they simply can live on a planet with other people and other organisms and not have to do some kind of, not negotiations, but like recognizing of boundaries and interacting on a correct level with those other human beings and organisms. Like, you can't just pretend like whatever, like a pioneer that says, I stake my claim to my land over here, and I'm just gonna build a log cabin, and I'm just gonna pump my own water, grow my own food, and not have to interact with anyone else, and no one's gonna interact with me. Like that's very limiting, and there's only a limited amount of structure that you can build as one individual. Like, you can build a log cabin on your own, just as one person with one muscle power. But if you want to build anything bigger than that, you're at a certain point, you're going to have help from other people. Like, and in order to get help from other people, you have to like get them to help you. How are you going to get them to help you? Like, there are all of these things. That's why I say negotiating. Negotiating doesn't necessarily mean, you know, something negative. It can be like, hey, I need something from you, and you need something from me, and let's work together. This is the interdependence of humanity. This is what I'm trying to say. So I understand, I'm here look through this cultural filter that this person was probably speaking through, this idea of just being misanthropic and disgusted with all humanity. Like, Calgon, take me away, get me out of here. These people are too screwed up, and I just want to go and live on a mountaintop and nobody bother me. I understand that that's their feeling. However, there aren't enough mountaintops for everyone in the whole entire world. Like, I just want to live on my own mountaintop, nobody bother me. And it doesn't work that way, because now I'm going to get down to this idea of sympathetic vibration. And you know I have to stop and drink a lot of water. Thank you for understanding. It's like literally 100 degrees outside, which means that it's like, you know, 85 or something inside. It's very warm here. Even with the fans and the AC going, it's still very warm. And I have like screens, you know, shades along the window, but the sun makes it very warm this time of day. So sympathetic vibration, I'm drinking more, is literally compassion. Compassion, again, is, I was talking about this in the Facebook video, that a lot of this is based upon interdimensional ethics and the concept of heart and unconditional love, the love tone, that we make when we move through time at just the right rate, and that unconditional love is not some romantic ideal. It doesn't mean when you are at the level of unconditional love, it doesn't mean like you want to kiss and hug everyone. It's not a romantic love. It's not a procreative love, that it's a different level of love. It can also be defined as compassion. So compassion also does not mean sympathy. It doesn't mean just like, oh, like poor you, I feel bad for you. That's not compassion. Let me drink more. Compassion literally means a sympathetic vibration of the heart, where your heart vibrates in conjunction with another person's heart, just like guitar strings. So first, I guess I'll use my hand in order to illustrate this. A guitar has 6 strings and my hand has 5, you know, digits on it. So we're almost correct, but not totally correct. But let's pretend that each one of my digits is like a string on a nice, beautiful guitar instrument. And if I pluck this string over here, and I'm not touching any of the other strings, the vibrations that this string is creating, which are basically in this direction, they are like lateral compression vibrations of the atmosphere, affect the other strings of the instrument. So once again, if I'm just stimulating this particular string over here, and I'm not even touching the thumb or the one that would be over here next to the thumb, those other strings are being stimulated even if I'm not directly touching them. This is called sympathetic vibration, and it happens from the, all of these strings share the same atmosphere. You are not playing in a vacuum. If you played a guitar in a vacuum, you couldn't hear anything. It's just like that old movie poster, like in space, no one can hear you scream. Yes, this is true. So if you tried to vibrate this string in a place where there's no vacuum, where there's a vacuum, where there's no atmosphere, none of these other strings would be affected. But we are not in a contextless vacuum. We're in a world of the atmosphere. So now that I did that, let me go back to the magical whiteboard. And hold on, I know it takes a moment for it to come up, and you're all always very patient. And I really need to get to the comments on YouTube. Everyone has been making wonderful comments. Okay, let's draw a cell with a membrane. So here is the external cell membrane, and here is the nuclear membrane. And of course, this is a cutaway. Like, a cell is actually a sphere, and what we're looking at here is a cross section. So both of these little membranes would be perfectly spherical. And inside of the cell membrane, let's get a different color of something. Here's where we have the DNA, and your DNA are like vibrating strings. I hope that's not too small for you to be able to see. I'm drawing like little individual strings, just like here's 6 vibrating strings on a guitar. 4, 5, 6. Wonderful. So to use my analogy from I was just using with my fingers of my hand, if I stimulate this string over here on the guitar to vibrate and make waves, what happens is those waves are transferred through the atmosphere to this string, this string, this string, all these strings over here, and they all begin to vibrate sympathetically. And that is literally what compassion is. So if I draw, well, we got these two little, we'll use these 2 little guys over here. Let's say this guy over here is emitting a particular vibration with his heart. And your heart is an electromagnetic pump. I mean, it creates a large energy field around it. And the functioning of your heart is not merely about like pumping fluid volume, you know, around your veins and your arteries. It is also about emitting a tone of music, and your music is affecting other people. So compassion is when the heart emissions of one person begin to affect the heart of another person. And here now I'm making a green spiral emitting out of this person over here. That person, that second person, is like one of these guitar strings over here. We didn't stimulate that string directly. So that means this string did not actually have the life experiences. This string over here that I'm, you know, highlighting and scribbling over did not actually get in a car accident or have cancer or be imprisoned or lose a loved one. That didn't happen. That's this one over here, this guy over here, that's this guy over here. This guy over here had a life experience and is now emitting the music of the end result of that life experience. And that music is emanating outward and is literally making this other person over here feel what it feels like to have had those life experiences. And then this person over here who feels the secondary after effects of those vibrations can be motivated to action. If it's like, wait, I feel this guy over here emitting these heart vibrations, my heart is now vibrating in a sympathetic way, and I now feel like, wow, I want to do something to maybe help that person or change the situation or rectify it or change your own life so that you don't have a similar difficulty. That is literally what compassion is. Compassion is being able to feel directly or sense another person on an energetic level from the after, oh, wait, I'm going too far, the after effects of their life. So to use this like relatively well-known example, some of the meditators of the Far East in China, before the communist occupation took over the country of China, you know, there were extensive networks of monks and everything like that. And when the communists took over, they oppressed the monks and they put a lot of them in prison. And the monks were trying to feel compassion for their oppressors, for the people that sometimes, you know, tortured them or killed them and definitely were imprisoning them. And so what they would do, they would try to feel the secondary vibrations. Like if these guys over here are the soldiers, like, hey, And what I'm trying to say is it's not just an intellectual exercise. They didn't just say with their minds, hey, what is it like to be a soldier? Why did that guy end up being a soldier? Was he conscripted? Does he want to be oppressing me? Does he want to be doing any of these things? They didn't really have to intellectualize it. What they did was felt it directly. That's what compassion is. You say, oh, wait. This soldier over here is emitting this heart vibration of what they are experiencing in their life. And then you're feeling it over here. It is stimulating your own body. All of this in order to say that our lives are intertwined. This is undeniable. It's a fantasy to pretend otherwise. All of our human lives, and not just human, because like, you know, in social interaction, like we generally socialize with members of our own species. However, we're connected with microbes. We're connected with trees. If you killed or chopped down all of the trees, our society would crumble, our biosphere would crumble. If you got rid of all the microbes, couldn't digest the food in your tummy. Like we are in rapport with all of these other musicians. And so we are heavily in rapport with the other musicians that are in human bodies. And what we are doing to one another in terms of how we structure society, and if one person violences another person, it's all interconnected. And that's the whole idea. So this is happening just like I use this example here of where I'm circling the guitar strings are causing our hearts to vibrate sympathetically. And now let's bring it on over here to the individual cell. This is one cell inside of your body. You've got trillions of cells. You've got trillions of your own cells. You've also got trillions of, you know, like gut bacteria that are in there too. But this is one of your own cells. And you have music literally emanating from your DNA. That is your particular song. That's your song, that's your music, and you go around everywhere playing your music. I hope you can hear that, it's not too loud in the microphone. I'm playing my music, and each person, just like you, each have your own individual DNA and your individual fingerprint. Everybody has their own unique song. This is your song, this is your song, and you're going around emitting your music, and your music is absolutely affecting, let me draw a different cell, draw a purple cell. A purple cell over here of a totally different person, your music is affecting them and their DNA. Let's draw some little DNA strings inside. So as the music comes from this guy over here, this gal over here, it goes off into the world around you, like the atmosphere, and it hits these strings right here. And your DNA song is affecting the DNA strings of another body. Not just one other body, but every other body that uses DNA in this world. And it goes beyond just DNA, because there are life forms that are like crystalline in structure, or the planet herself, which the planet is, you know, made of minerals. There's what I'm trying to say, there are other containers that can contain consciousness that are not only users of DNA. However, let's say DNA is like all of the instruments that use strings in the band. So that's the harp, the guitar, the piano, anything that's got a string. Let me drink more water. When you emit your genetic emissions, you are singing a song that affects all of the other musicians that also have strings and that also have DNA. And that, well, technically this is part of level 2 presentation, but that is also part of the ethics of being allowed to do this. Because people have asked me many times, like, why are you here as a walk-in? How come you're allowed to be here? Like, where are you supposed to be? How come you're here affecting all of us? And I have had to explain very clearly, like, I am not breaking any of the rules of the cosmos by being here in this body. I'm allowed to have a body. I'm allowed to have my song in my body. That's why I make it really clear on the introductions to all of, you know, the webinars and everything. I'm like, hey, everybody, you're invited to come along and be part of this music, be exposed to, here we have the music over here. Come be exposed to my song, come play along if you like it. But none of it is me forcing that on anyone else. However, I'm allowed to be here. I'll get to that question. And just my presence here is affecting the other strings on the guitar. The planet is one instrument. The planet herself is the instrument. And it's like a harp. You know, harps have many, many, many strings. Every organism here is like a string on that harp. And so, yes, I'm here as a visitor organism, making this body dance in a new dance movement. And that's absolutely it's affecting the microbes in my tummy. It's affecting the mites on my eyelashes. Guess who just showed up? It's the boss, everyone. Mwah, the boss. Let's get a good picture of the boss. I love it when she shows up in the thumbnails and then the views go up on the video, and I tell Cheeky that she's famous on the internet. We're so happy that you decided to come along on the mystery tour. Yes. So my DNA vibrations are absolutely affecting Cheeky, and Cheeky's DNA vibrations are affecting me. And that's actually, you know, the process of domestication of animals. Like there's actually, whatever, we can go into a whole diatribe about that. But yeah, in a very ethical way, we are allowed to affect the other organisms that are around us because we're here and we're part of the symphony of life. That's a good segue into, I have a link to share with everyone, Symphony of Life. So I'm going down to my thing here. I'm telling you, I'm meticulously organized in my notes today. I'm super on top of everything. Hold on a second. I'm copying something. I know I'm making squinty, scrolly faces. How do I copy? How do I copy? Here, copy. Good. Squinty, scrolly faces. And now I'm putting it in the chat. All right. So, and I should add this in the, can I, oh, I wish I could paste. Can I? There we go. Thank you. Thank you for bearing with me. Boom. Okay, good. So for anyone who's here watching this live, you should be able to get that link in the chat. I already sent the link around to the people that are on the message, and I'll include it in the description of this video, and I'll put it in it's like a homework. It's a fun homework, so I'm trying to say to everyone. Yeah, so it's a wonderful video that is called Elemonics, and it's a person who has turned the basics of chemistry, like what is hydrogen and what is oxygen, and everything has a vibration that has been turned into a particular tone or a particular musical sound. And he's got a sampler there, and he's got all the different samples that he's making in music of biology, music of biological life. And that is what is being presented in the video. And at a certain point in the video, the person also plays different chemical compounds that are not part of life, that are like, you know, artificially created, like DDT and glyphosate, and the sound of what they sound like. And they sound like, cover your ears, everyone, they sound like this. They sound like ugly, out of tune, not harmonic music. So this is, it's a very worthwhile video, and it's not very long to watch. It's incredibly well done. And, you know, it's all about basic, because in this class, I often use the analogy that we're in a symphony of life, and that every organism that is here is a player with their own instrument, and and I'll also talk about the cells of your body and having an instrument. The instruments all have to work together, and that there are some chemical compounds that are antithetical to the good music of what we're trying to play. If we're moving stuff over here, if we're trying to play this beautiful music, and something else is playing this horrible music like this, then it's very hard for us to maintain. And that music, that's beautiful structured music, that is this beautiful music of healthy cellular metabolism, where all of the oxygen is going where it's supposed to go, and all of the carbon goes where it's supposed to go, and all of your mitochondria are functioning correctly. And that is called cellular vitality. So all the time in this class, I say, hey, if you play the right notes with the instrument of your body, then you get to keep on being alive in the symphony. And if you don't play the right notes, then it means you don't get to be alive anymore, and you die. And it's also very hard to play the right notes with your physical cellular structure when you're being impinged upon all the time by poor musicians that do not play the right notes. And that includes chemical contaminants, uncontrolled EMF waves, and other people that have DNA emissions that are diseased. This is the whole challenge, that if we are surrounded by beings whose their music that they're emitting is hard, it's like, that music is horrible, I want to put my fingers in my ears. And I'm not talking about like their personality characteristics, even though there might be barbaric personality characteristics at play here as well, but I'm really talking more about just the song of people's bodies, whether their bodies are healthy and vital and at ease, or whether they are diseased. And in terms of just basic cancer statistics, and he goes into this very well in the video link that I just shared, in terms of cancer statistics, you know, it's overwhelming what a large percentage of this population here now is developing cancer. And so it's like we are being exposed to chemicals that are like, those chemicals are making ugly sounds. And then people ingest them in their body, and then they are emitting that ugly sound from their body too. So it takes a great deal of willpower and being your own musician in order to maintain your own health and vitality. And when you do that, you're sharing health and vitality with the rest of the band. So this is, again, down to this. Even though technically you're an individual and you are responsible for your own body and for your own body health and body emanations, we're all affecting one another. And you can do a service for humanity and the rest of the biosphere and the planet herself if you keep your body as healthy as you possibly can. That, because and I have to say this, I have to emphasize this, because there's all of these teachings from like the very distorted and hijacked Catholic Church about the nobility of suffering, you know, and also the idea that you might suffer and die in this realm, but then you will get your treasure in heaven, you'll get your reward in heaven. And I'm trying to break through all of that. I think those are all really negative thought structures that are also erroneous. So I'm trying to get everyone on the idea that it's not self-indulgent to take care of yourself. It's not self-indulgent to like drink fresh, raw vegetable juice and do good exercise for your body, or, you know, not use chemical cosmetics and stuff that, you know, are filled with carcinogens. Because some people would think that, they think like, who do you think you are wanting to eat organic food and, you know, like wear jojoba oil? Like, who do you think you are? Like, no, that's what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be living and taking care of your body as best you possibly can, as a form of service to the larger thing that you are connected to. So let me go back to the whiteboard and talk about cells and cellular structure, and what someone said to me online about in terms of being what they felt imprisoned in their cells. So, I mean, hold on, before I go over there, hold on a second. You know, I'm a visitor to this body, not the person that grew this body in the womb. And maybe, well, whatever. I appreciate my body. I don't feel burdened by it. And I had to learn a lot about that, especially when I first came here. You know, I lived in this body and I was living in Woodstock, New York, and a lot of my friends there, they're like, oh, like having a body is such a chore. Like, oh, we have to, you know, eat and poop. And I just wanted to, like, you know, be a fairy and fly around on gossamer wings and not have to care about any of this. And I didn't feel that way. I'm like, wow, like I've got a body. I can do all sorts of cool stuff with my body. Like I can walk with my dog on a beach. I can eat cool, good food. I can do fun stuff. Like, you know, you can do walking, whatever. You can do athleticism. You can do fun stuff with your body. And I don't know if anybody can remember of what it was like maybe when you were a very young child, but, you know, before anybody felt any discomforts in their body, and when you still felt like, wow, life is a fun adventure and having a body is a wonderful opportunity. So that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I haven't lost that. I still feel like, wow, having a body is a wonderful, fun adventure. It's a privilege. I love to have my body. I don't feel like, oh no, my shoulders go down. Now I have to feed my body. Then we have to use the toilet. Then I have to brush my teeth. Then I have to do blah, blah, blah. Like that doesn't, I'm not that way at all. And I'd even say that attitude of being just so, look at the body as such a chore and something that's so, whatever, difficult to have to deal with, that is the mindset. Chiki's going on her own little boss chair over there, because I think it's very warm for her to just sit with me. Yes, that everybody feels that they need to, sorry if I lost my train of thought. Okay, hold on a second. Get out of their body somehow. So that's a big one. And I was on a little walk with Chiki and I was thinking about this. How can I describe this? So in this time and place, the important thoughts almost always try to jump away. And I'm like, no, don't jump away. Okay, in this time and place that many people are disassociated from their bodies. native inhabitants of here. I'm not talking about walk-ins. So like for me, I came into this body and I had to be like, oh, this is my body. Like that, these are my fingernails. Like this, I have to like learn to be in this body. But at this point, like I've been here for 17 years and I'm like, yeah, this is my hair. Like this is my teeth. This is me. It's not like I feel like I'm borrowing someone else's car and driving it around the neighborhood. It's not like that at all. And P.S., I wash my car and I, get new tires on my car. It's all my car. I'm taking care of my vehicle. And I had to learn that a lot of people here feel kind of disassociated from their bodies. And that whole idea of the invader, because I've talked about this before, we're not waiting until lesson 18, that this is all about the genetic invaders, then their mind invaders too, that came into this body structure and that don't actually belong in this body. And those are the beings that are they're like, I'm just putting down my stuff here. They're like, ew, like I don't want to have to go outside and like touch a bunch of soil and grow my food. Like I don't want to have to actually get dirty. I don't want to have my body actually like sweat. Like those are the people that are disgusted with their own body, with their own body fluids, with their own body processes, and with whatever it takes to have a healthy and vital body. Like, yes, peeing and pooping is part of having a healthy, vital body. Or if you've ever been a parent or a professional babysitter, not a parent, I've been a professional babysitter quite a lot. So I've dealt with a lot of babies' dirty diapers. And it's like, that is part of like helping someone to be alive. You got to help them to pee and poop. Like, that's it. If you're not ready to help on that level, that is like the most basic level, like you're not ready to help life and consciousness be here. So there are some of these demonic consciousnesses that are occupiers of the interstices, and they are not prepared to do anything that is involved in the actual physical care and nourishment of the body. They're not like, oh, let me eat good food, let me brush and floss my teeth, let me, take care of toileting and, showering and everything like that. They consider that to be the most choreful, lowly of chores and whatever activities and tasks. Like they have to have a body. Oh no, you have to have a body, because they're only interested in the things that we would consider to be like peak moments, like the moments of pleasure or euphoria. They're not interested in all of the other supportive moments of life that are necessary to have moments of pleasure and euphoria. Like, if you want to have the moment when you're sitting down to a beautiful meal, like the plate is put in front of you, you also have to have the moment where you go to the grocery store, push your little trolley around, buy the tomatoes, and chopping things up in the kitchen and preparing it and actually putting it on a plate and washing the dishes afterwards. So the invader consciousness does not want to take responsibility for the food production, food gathering, food preparation, only the consumption, and not for cleaning up or any of the after effects like pooping. That is the invader mind. When you start to see that being evidenced in human culture or in individual humans, understand that's the invader mind. And that's like eating out is the invader mind. It's the idea like you don't want to be involved in any level of food procuring or food production. You just want to sit down, have food put in front of you, and then someone else takes the dirty dishes away and washes them in the kitchen. And it's being in many ways disassociated from the food that is part of life and the food that goes in your tummy. And this is also like, we have this epidemic of people being so disassociated from their true appetites that they become very grossly overweight. Like, I'm just not talking about 10 pounds, I'm talking about 100 pounds. You don't get to be 100 pounds overweight unless you are absolutely disconnected from your true nutritional needs and requirements of your body. So all of this in order to say that our body, our bodies, I say this all the time, were not intended to be something that is a constraint or a limit. It was intended to be something that is a wonderful opportunity. So that I look at it like a wonderful opportunity because I'm also doing the flying rainbow lasagna all the time on a cellular level. So when I draw this picture, you'll understand why I don't consider this body to be a prison or a limitation at all. Now let me draw what I was intending to draw before. So someone who I was talking with on the internet, let me just clear a little bit of space here, was saying not that long ago, they were like, hey, these cells are like prison cells. Here, let me get another color. It's like, yeah, the cells of your body are like a prison cell. Now I'm drawing like a cell in prison with bars on it, that they felt like, oh, I have to be stuck in the physical. And I can't wait to get out of the physical. And that's all part of that death cult teaching. Like, oh, you'll be free when you get out of the physical. That the way to be free is to die, hit the membrane of death, and then you won't have a body anymore. Which is kind of like saying, if you don't like this music, then the way to get rid of that music is just like kill your piano. Destroy your piano, and then you won't be making this ugly music anymore. It's like, no, instead of destroying your piano, you can start to play beautiful music instead. So I don't resent, that's the word I keep on trying to bump up against here. Resent my presence in a physical body. And I also had to fight very hard and work very hard to be in this body. So I'm erasing these cages. This is not a cage to me, and I hope no one who has a body looks at it like a cage. Because I also, like, let's redraw this as like a room, not a prison, but like a room where the cell lives. And that room is called the third dimension. We could even make it a box. Here, we'll draw it like, here's a cube, a box. Your cells live in the third dimension. But to me, this is not a prison or a cage or something that is unpleasant, because what I do is flying rainbow lasagna. So what I'll do is, let's draw this properly. If this is the flying rainbow lasagna, I take the DNA that's in the cell nucleus over here, where I'm making a scribble at this end, and I make that DNA jump out of the room and make it jump over here. So this would be exactly like if you are, let's say this position over here is sitting inside of your room, you know, in your living room, sitting on your couch, and you're able to hop that version of you outside of the walls of your room, and then have part of you sitting in your outside garden, on your front lawn, and then of course have that part of you jump back inside of you and have it be constantly jumping in and out. And that constant jumping in and out doesn't have to just be in one direction. It can be in and out like this, and then in and out like this, and then in and out over here, and then in and out over here. And the in and out is not just a physical in and out, it's an in and out through time. That is my experience. And we'll get more into the inside and outside and breaking down these walls. That's my experience. It's why I don't consider this to be a prison where I'm like, oh, poor me, I have to eat food and I'm stuck in the prison of my body. I'm like, no, hooray for me. Because even though I'm in this moment now, I'm at the moment of 2:48 on July 25th, I'm also jumping my consciousness into other times and places outside of, like, look, I'm in a box. I'm literally in a box. If you look at the setup of the screen, I'm in a room, but I'm not stuck in this room. And that's the difference between a home and a cage. Like, if it's your home, you're like, oh, I can be at home and I can be comfortable. Like, you know how dogs have their comfy cave? They're like, I'm comfy, I'm in my cave, I'm where I want to be. And then you get to leave your cave when you want to. That means I can leave this moment when I want to. And I do this through the act of flying rainbow lasagna-ing. So right now at this moment, you know, I'm flapping and moving mouth parts. I'm focusing a lot on socializing. However, so that means that my conscious daily waking intellect is focused on my mouth parts and everything like that. My metabolism, my cells, however, are doing their flying rainbow lasagna dance through time. And I'm constantly metabolizing on a cellular and subcellular level and doing this genetic flying rainbow lasagna dance through time. And then at certain times of the day, I drop all of my physical chores of the mundane world, and I sit down in my magical lasagna chair, which is kind of like this rainbow lawn chair, and I do my flying rainbow lasagna dance. And then I'm focusing my daily waking intellect also on that jumping through time. And all of this means, like, I'm not sad to be here. I'm not like, oh no, I'm stuck in my body and having a body is so horrible and we have to buy toilet paper. I'm like, woohoo, I have a body. That means I have a foothold in reality. I have that French word, pied à terre. I have a place to put my foot on the earth. And usually that means like a little apartment, like you rent a little apartment someplace that you can live there and kind of like go around and have your adventures and have a place to come home to and, you know, just like sleep. But I'm talking about, like, I have a home base in this physical reality, drinking water. And that is a super duper position to be in. And I'm saying that not just so that I can say, like, I'm so great, but so that I can encourage every one of you to similarly feel that way about your body. I say all the time, these are our beautiful, organic, multicellular, miraculous bodies. So our bodies respond to consciousness. They respond to thought. And okay, I'll get to questions because there's lots of wonderful, good questions. And then we'll get to the actual activity of the flying rainbow lasagna and combining the inside and the outside. I will not forget about this. So first, good questions, and I don't want to miss anything. Okay. Brandon is saying, I would like my compassion to send all in need a cool rain. We totally appreciate it. And I know I spoke to you last week about that your little boy had set a cool breeze to me, and I was doing my flying rainbow lasagna meditation. It was very hot outside, so I was in here where it's much cooler, and I totally felt a cool breeze. So we are telepathically connected. This not just me and one other person, our whole entire species and the planet, everything that we're experiencing is telepathically connected. So yes, what you send out with your mind, you can send out encouragement and nourishment and things that people actually need with your mind. You can actually get them. It's a pretty amazing level of interconnectivity. And that also means, so you can bless someone, you can also curse someone. Like if you're just thinking hateful thoughts towards someone, like, I hate that person and I want them to, you know, die in a car accident. Like you're really doing something. You're not just doing nothing. That mind creations like that are powerful also. So now we're talking about natural love-based magic, which is when Brandon sends out something like, oh, I want to send something good to everyone else, as opposed to dark magic, which is based on, let's say, harvesting of hatred. You know, hatred is like the gas that makes their car go, as opposed to love making your car go. And that hatred is sending out waves that are ugly music to everyone else, that we're really affecting each other. And once you start to see that, it's not cool. It's not cool for neighbors to throw trash in your own yard. Like, stop throwing trash in my yard. Stop beaming those ugly, disgusting, horrible thoughts at me. And so it's not okay if someone thinks thoughts of your demise, like they want you to die or get very sick. And it's not okay if they project inappropriate sexual thoughts upon you. That's totally not okay. Some people, their minds are like their inner porno channel, and they're constantly undressing other people, looking at them in inappropriate ways, and doing inappropriate imaginings or envisionings of themselves having sex with those people that are not consensual partners. None of that is okay. And as we are entering into a telepathic society, that must be recognized. That is unacceptable behavior. Just like when you're a little child and, you know, like technically, like picking your nose is a normal biological event that you should be allowed to do, but you're not allowed to do that in front of other people. That is considered socially aberrant behavior. In a telepathic society, for you to do that level of sexual fantasizing and send it out and project it to other people is totally inappropriate. And it becomes beyond, like with a child picking their nose, they're just picking their nose and it's, you know, embarrassing. This is something that actually begins to cross boundaries in a way that is unethical and harmful, because it's attention going into someone else's mind or life experience that is not invited. So Dominic is a new participant to this class who just signed up, and welcome. And he invited me to say, hey, like, come flying rainbow lasagna with me in my DNA. And I'm like, woohoo, like, let's jam together. That's what it is. And I really wanted to say, in my experience so far of jamming on with other musicians with their DNA in their bodies, you know, I come if I'm an invited guest. And if I'm not an invited guest, I'm like, okay, like, I'd have to jam with you. And I find that organisms like trees and insects and microbes, they don't have the ego issues, the barriers to be able to say, well, I don't want to dance with you. Who are you? Why should you come and dance inside of my DNA? Why should you affect my DNA strings? That I don't have those levels of skepticism and mistrust that I have to break through in order to be able to connect with them. So it's a lot easier in many ways for me to connect with microbes and non-human animals, and even with, you know, molecular structures. So I'm so happy to play my music with cool other humans, especially when I have a direct invitation. I hope it's okay that I shared that, that was not private or anything like that. But yeah, I shared that in order to specifically say, like, that's my ethics. That's how I do this. On the one hand, I'm playing my own music, jamming in my studio. But if someone calls me up and is like, Aurora, like, come on over, bring your instrument, let's jam. I'm like, let's do it. That's how we do it. So yeah. And I know that my neighbors can hear my music, just like probably in my neighborhood. As long as I keep the windows closed, I think I'm fine. I sing pretty loud sometimes. I sing, like, you know, Freddie Mercury songs, and I think that they can probably hear them in my neighborhood. But if someone invites me over to play with their band, then I'm like, yes, I would love to come and sing. So wait, let me get to more of the questions over here. Okay. Sorry. Okay, Pedro, good question. He says, doesn't the Merkaba block that chaos music? Absolutely. So, okay, in part of my practice, you know, before I do the flying rainbow lasagna dance, I do a big giant Merkaba around me. That's just like, where's my bench brush? Let me hop up a second and get this. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. This is what I use when I'm doing my drawings and doing my paintings. It's my bench brush. Before I get going, I sweep away all the little eraser bits and pencil shavings and everything else that's on the table or on the canvas. Sweep, 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 in order to really get ready to start to draw or start to paint. And that is how I look at the initial Merkaba that I put around my body. It's like sweep, 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 sweep. I'm now creating a nice, perfectly clean work area. I'm cleaning off all the dust, I'm cleaning off all the detritus, and I'm putting like a nice shield around my body that says, artist at work, please don't mess with me, don't interrupt me, I'm doing my thing. And then I'll go further than that, because sometimes I feel particular body parts are trying to be attacked. If it might be a brain, my liver, my kidney, my whatever, I will put an actual Merkaba around whatever body part I feel is trying to be poked at or attacked. And I'll also put Merkabas, what's the plural, Merkabim, around each individual cell. If I go to the picture over here, I'll go to this, and you may ask very good questions, so thank you for this opportunity to clarify. Wait. Here's an individual cell, and here's a cell, and I put a little Merkaba around each individual cell, literally. If you can envision all this, because you have trillions of cells, it's pretty complex. But yeah, I put many, many, many protective energy fields around each of my cells. And that is also meant to block out, like, hey, microwave emissions from my stupid smart meter, or my neighbor's stupid smart meter, or any of the other crapola that is in the world that affects us on a cellular level. So it's totally appropriate to do that. And it requires willpower, like all of this. Just like your immune system also requires willpower. And willpower is also the answer to how do we get this initial flying rainbow lasagna impulse to jump up and down. It is done as an act of willpower. So Liz says that is why elites have servants to do the lowly work. You totally got it. You totally got it. I was talking about the invader mindset. The invader mindset says, it's just like, there have been nobles throughout human history. The nobles are like, ooh, like I wear fancy white gloves. I do not go in the garden and actually pick a tomato. Have my lady's maid do that for me and make me a nice salad caprese. And I will sit here inside and make sure that I don't get too much sun on my complexion so that I continue to look pale. Like that, we understand that there's that whole thing. And now it's more of a sense of like, if you are a worker in the social world, you work inside an office building, you're like, oh, you go from an air-conditioned car to an air-conditioned office building and wear like those pantyhose, or like, like they wear these like girdles and stuff like that, and polyester clothing, nothing that breathes is what I'm trying to say. They're not wearing like, loose flowing, hemp garments or whatever. Yeah, everybody's wearing unnatural fibers that are very constrictive, and even undergarments, like, you know what I'm talking about, like super structured people that are disassociated from their bodies. They don't necessarily feel when they're truly hungry or when they're truly tired, or if they're feeling tired and laggy, they're like, oh, I need to drink caffeine in order to feel revved up again. There are people that they're not athletes, is what I'm trying to say. When you look at the people that are acting in this way, they're disassociated from their body in this way, they are the antithesis of what we would consider to be athletes. Because athletes are like, oh, hey, I just did a bunch of weightlifting, so now I should, eat something with some good protein and give my muscles an opportunity to recover. These people aren't thinking that way. They're thinking like, I want to go eat a muffin or a donut or something. You know what I'm talking about? Processed food that doesn't even look like food in its original format. So it's that whole entire mindset of like you're totally correct and on target, Liz, when you say that. A sense of the invaders that came to this planet, that are the carpetbaggers, that want to harvest all the resources, including soul resources, like of the consciousness, and apply it to their own lives, and that they want everyone else to be like their little slaves, their little peasants, their little worker bees, who actually do all the difficult stuff, and yeah, who never want to actually apply their own energy to the tasks. Like that's the mindset of it. And so I hope that you guys can tell, like, I'm not like that. I am the literal antithesis of that. Like I grow my own tomatoes outside. I consider it to be an honor. I'm happy to grow my food. I'm happy to grow my own cannabis. I love, Christine is agreeing with me. Like, okay, so like if you had a choice, you could be like, okay, I'm gonna spend $100 on a special fancy restaurant meal, or I could spend $100 on like organic soil and other amendments for my garden or whatever. Clearly I would spend it on organic soil and other good stuff for my garden. Like I consider that to be, if I had $1 million or whatever, living the millionaire lifestyle to me would be having an extensive home garden that grows all the fruits and vegetables that I need, and eating food that is the least polluted, highest quality food that is possible, as opposed to like, there's lots of restaurants in LA where you can eat any kind of thing in the world, but it's not necessarily food that is good for your cellular structure. It's all about just people pleasing their taste buds. Like and also like being bored. Like, what's the next new taste I can eat? Can I eat whatever? Like, the weird things on a stick, like crickets on a stick, like chocolate covered ants. Like, what's the next new weird thing I can eat? Because I've already eaten every other kind of animal. Like, it's not about eating for what your body really needs. It is eating for some consumption that is, making it possible to stave off the boredom. Like, they're bored with being here. Like, it's not good enough just to be here and be a human. And contrast that with what it feels like, if you can remember, to be a little child, like usually little children under 5, when it's like, life's a fun adventure. Everything is fun and cool. Like, wow, growing tomatoes in the garden is fun, and picking them and eating them is cool, and climbing a tree and getting apples from it is fun and interesting. Like that, contrast that with the boredom and ennui of these very, very rich elite people that are like, oh yeah, no, we ain't gonna climb a tree and pick some apples. Like, having a little picnic is not fun enough. It's always like, what is the next thing to be able, more and more and more ridiculous levels of consumption. So wait. Now back to more questions. Yeah, Salu is agreeing with that. The elite invader being like a very lazy mindset. Okay, so Joelle says, so can make your DNA jump outside of you just by thinking about it? Close, you're very close. It is not that your DNA is jumping outside of you. It's that you are making your DNA vibrate, and that your vibrations are affecting the world around you, and that you begin to understand that DNA is non-local. And the second part of your question is absolutely accurate just by thinking about it. The answer is yes. So all of this is a spontaneous expansion, just like the spontaneous expansion of the 0th dimension that I've drawn many times. I'll draw it again, into the 1st dimension, and on and on and on. That we keep on doing this, like the same mirroring, or in fractal mirrors, fractal shards, the same thing. If this is the 0th dimension down here, and at a certain point, it decides to jump outside of itself and makes a little part of itself over here, and then we have the 1st dimension, and we connect all of those two points with a series of points, making the 1st dimension. That jumping outside of oneself, initial impulse, is the magical thing that is done just by thinking about it. By thinking about it, we're not necessarily talking about at the level of yellow, the level of the solar plexus. It's not the implanted, hacked human mind. It is at the level of willpower, of soul. So how can we talk about willpower? If everyone in this class, if I say to everyone who has a right arm, raise your right arm. That's all. Raise your arm. Wave it all around. I say, how did you do that? What was the connection between your inner command of raising your arm and your actual execution of that command, connecting it to your skeletal muscles and making your hand actually move? So most of us mastered this in infancy or early childhood. You learned how to move your body. You apply your willpower to moving your physical body. And we've mastered that. Like, we didn't come here being able to, we didn't come here being able to pick up a pencil very easily and move it in little tiny circles in order to make letters or numbers. We practiced that a lot over many, many years. Like, when you were a little tiny kid, like, you held your pencil like this and you scribbled in big, giant loops. So yes, that dexterity took a long time to be able to cultivate. Same thing with your DNA, with our journey of becoming virtuosos of the DNA, that it requires willpower. So you're connecting willpower is an invisible force, kind of like gravity or electromagnetism. And it exists independent of consciousness and independent of having a physical body. So that means that even if you got killed, like someone chops off your head and you don't have a physical body anymore, you still have consciousness and you still have willpower. And this is how you can decide your trajectory or your flight through time, even if you no longer have a physical body. So that's pretty big to understand, because I think science gives everyone the cosmology, the story that says your mind arose from your neurology. So first you grew a little baby inside of your mommy's tummy, and the brain became connected enough to be able to have a sense of self. And then that sense of self developed a sense of willpower that says, I'm me and I'm going to do stuff here. No, that's not what actually happened. What actually happened was your consciousness and your willpower existed independent of the fetus growing in your mommy's tummy. In fact, to grow a fetus, it requires willpower. Your higher dimensional or n-dimensional self had to actually use its willpower to say, I want that sperm and that ovum to come together, and I want them to explode outward into, or expand outward into a geometric progression of cells that I want to inhabit one day. That's the whole thing. That's like saying, like, I want to get a piano and I want to learn to play Mozart on the piano. And then it takes a long time to actually get the piano, figure out chords, and get your fingers to move in the proper way. That's why I say to everyone that these bodies that we have are not burdensome. They're wonderful opportunities. You had to fight very hard. Like, we had different battles to be able to occupy our bodies. However, everybody had to work very, very hard just to have these bodies. And I'm appalled, not that I'm like so judgmental or condescending or whatever, but when I look at how people look at their bodies, they're like, oh, my face has freckles on it, I don't like my freckles. I'm like, you have a body. Like, why do you care about whether your face has freckles? And the things that people do to their bodies because they don't like some what would be considered a minor imperfection, like freckles, like that's a minor imperfection. People are like, don't worry about that. You have a body, you have real estate here. It's like saying, like, oh, you have this great apartment, but like, I just don't like the tiles in the bathroom. Like, who cares? You have a great apartment. Like, the tiles are a very, very small part of that detail. So wait, let me drink more water. The activity of doing the flying rainbow lasagna is an activity of the willpower. So, and I'll go extensively, this is just the 5th lesson of this semester, into how do we actually dance like a flying rainbow lasagna. This is music theory to be able to learn how to do it. But the activity is an activity of willpower on a subcellular level. Just like we have on a macroscopic level, we use willpower to learn how to move our arms and legs around and maintain the dexterity of doing it in very fine motor movements. So too is moving our DNA through time, an act of willpower, and becoming dexterous, or having a virtuoso experience of being able to move your DNA in exactly the right ways. Let me do a screen share and show you some images that I've got over here. And then don't worry, I'm going to get to more of your beautiful pictures. Questions. You can tell my brain short circuits a little bit when I'm trying to do too many things at once. So this is a diagram that I did not draw, and I hope you can see it clearly on your screen. I think it's a little small, but it's all about supercoiling. And I'll write that word out so that everyone, well, super, like the word Superman, and coiling, like you coil a spring. That is what we've got over here. That these are diagrams of how I started out with the idea that your DNA, here we go, get an annotation. Your DNA is not something that is static, and it's not something that is flat. So it's constantly moving and vibrating and dancing, and it dances in these elaborate patterns. So sometimes it'll make loops, like here's a couple of loops. Sometimes it'll loop around like a pretzel. Sometimes it will, it's got all these different scientific names for it, but one of them is to writhe, like to loop itself around, and it twists itself around. So it's a constant, like I was saying, guitar strings. These are the guitar strings inside of each one of your cells that are constantly doing this dance. And the dance that they've been doing up until this point has been a dance that is heavily influenced by ancestry, current human social culture, and religion, and other forms of cosmology. That basically religion tells you, like, where life came from and what you're allowed to believe. And I think you understand what I'm talking about. Let me show you another picture over here, because I was just trying to say before about the idea of jumping outside of your cell. So now first I'll draw this, and I'll say, if we have your chakra system, here, just draw some chakras. Okay, usually you have that little yellow sculpture, and it's shaped like these 4 vortices. Oop, that didn't work. Here, boom, like this, and like this, and like this. Here's my little shorthand for a full, chakra of your body. That in order to translate that shape that I just drew over here into this shape that we've got over here, what we need to do is make it jump up and down in a context. So now I'm going to tie this all together and have a few more minutes. If we started out with the idea of this is this human cell, there's nuclear membrane and nucleus, here's the cell of the cell membrane. That same exact drawing mirrors what science teaches us about time, where we've got the super, super dense thing that exploded into the Big Bang. And then we've got the present moment now, where I just made this, you know, black scribble. That membrane, that boundary is the present moment now. And science does not recognize anything outside of that present moment now. Just in the same way, remember at the beginning of this teaching, I was telling you all about that initial one-celled animal that said, hey, I'm looking out for number one. I only got to care about what's going on inside of me, and I don't got to care about what's going on outside of here. That is science's very underdeveloped or infantile approach at this moment that basically says, I only have to care about the present moment now, and everything that is the past. Everything that's the past is where I'm drawing this arrow backwards into, you know, towards that initial starting point. And science does not recognize the future. And in order for this chakra shape to turn into this flying rainbow lasagna shape, what we need to do is put that chakra into a context. So, and I should also say this shape of the chakras is derived if we take various, it's called them God's fingers, big giant fingers, and we begin to dimple that fabric of the moment now in these directions. I hope my screen will work, like I can draw a picture over here. Here, there we go, little arrow over here, boom, 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 and one comes in from here and one comes in from here. If we use these big giant fingers or impulses or vectors from a divine being, we still have, you know, basically a stretchy moment now, but what we have turned it into is this chakra shape over here. So we still have an inside and an outside, like an outer surface and an inner surface. And topology is the study of surfaces. The way we get out of these limitations is by literally putting this all in a context. I just put that bubble of time into a room. I put it in a context. It's not just floating in a vacuum of space. This is just like saying you're individuated from your society, but you're not separated from it. You're connected to society. You're connected to the molecules around you. You're connected to other beings in time. That's what this context is. And same thing if we did this with the Big Bang in time. We would say, wow, we're putting that time bubble in a context, in a room now, and now we actually have the future, where I'm scribbling in black. That's the future. And so now what we can do is have the past and the future interact, because up until that point, the past and the science did not even recognize that the future is in existence. So now if we look at this drawing that I've got here in the background where I'm scribbling, you've got two different positions of the chakras. Like we've got one, let's see if I can draw it. I don't know if I can draw in that area. Here's a big box over here. Oh, this is very messy drawn. And then here's another box down here. I've got two boxes. And now I'm going to erase, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we have over here with this chakra, I put it in a context, and then what I'm going to have is a context that's up there and a context that's down here. Just like you have left eye and right eye. This is how we get past duality. And what I'm going to do is make that chakra jump up and down between these two contexts. One moment it's going to jump down in that direction, and then it's going to turn around. It's going to jump from down here where I'm making a dot back up to here. It's doing a constant jumping up and down between these two positions within a context. That is what we've got in the sketch over at the left. We've got one position of the chakra up here where I'm kind of making that box. And then the other position is down here where I'm making this box. And let's use the right colors. Here's this dot, this big giant purple dot over here. That big giant purple dot is jumping down over to this position over here. Then it turns around like it's hit a mirror and is being reflected back, and it jumps back up to this position over here. And it's that jumping up and down motion through time that creates the flying rainbow lasagna motion. And this happens on a genetic level because of supercoiling. Where is my picture of supercoiling? We're doing the screen share. Let's see if I can make this work. How do I make this work? Do something. Something. No, something. I don't know how to make things work sometimes. Bear with me. No. I want to do like, there we go. Now we got it. Thank you for bearing with me. Technology is working. I'm looking for another picture here. And the picture is, oh, I don't know. Let me stop the share because this is just way too hard to see everything that's on my screen. Looking for another picture here. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Oh, technology. Now let me go scroll through my pictures and find what I'm looking for over here. Class lectures. And I'm looking for this one that is all about supercoiling and toroidal structure. Do I have it easily available? Do I have it easily available? Yes. I'm so impressed, guys. I found it. Okay, this one over here. Good. Okay, now I go back to screen share. I know I make squinty, scrolly faces. No, this one over here, screen share. And now you can see this magical picture that I brought up. So this is supercoiling. Supercoiling is what happens when you take one thread of DNA. I'll get a pen so I can draw on here. One thread of DNA, like what this is over here, and you start to coil it up around these little proteins. I hope you can see the coiling structure that I'm drawing in black, that are called histones. And that's the first part of the complexity of the knitting together of the genetic sweater. At a certain point, I'm changing colors so you can see better, the little histones join together and they make these little donut shapes over here. What you've got over here, where I'm making this kind of red mark, is many, many donuts all stacked up together. And any place where you've got a donut, like if this is a donut shape, and I'm kind of drawing it very loosely, any place where you've got a donut, you can turn it into a flying rainbow lasagna by making that central point jump up and down. The central point is the source or the convergence point. It's the destination. It's the 0th dimension. It's the singularity. So if we've got many, many, many of these donuts all stacked up over here, what we can end up doing is having many, 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 I'm drawing all these curly lasagna noodles. I hope you can see that on your screen, kind of stacked up next to each other. Here, I'll draw it in a better way so you can see, not on top of the drawing. They're stacked up next to each other like this, and they are all lasagna-ing, kind of on overlapping. They're all overlapping on top of each other. And what this means is that different layers of reality are overlapping on top of each other and connecting in ways that weren't available in the past. This is what I mean when I say you do the flying rainbow lasagna, you add an additional dimension and you add an additional degree of freedom. So now back to this whole idea of, I use this analogy all the time, a little ant. A little ant is either walking, if this is the bubble of time, and the bubble of time is like a surface, and there's the inner surface in here and the outer surface here. And if there's a little ant that's walking on this surface in here, it can never talk with the little ant that's out here. This is the past. Little ant from the past can never talk with the ant from the future over here because they're separated by the membrane of the present moment now. But if we can flying rainbow lasagna, what ends up happening is the inside and the outside become communicative. And what we do is we don't cut that bubble of time. If I'm like, I'm going to take scissors and I'm going to cut the bubble of time, that is not allowed. That is against the rules. That's like saying 1 + 1 = 5. It does not equal 5. That does not hold together in any kind of context here. So in order for the inside and the outside to become communicative, we have to find a way to make that bubble differently shaped without cutting the surface. And this relates to the idea, I have it saved up in the supplemental homework lessons, along with the lesson on supercoiling, on how to turn a sphere inside out, which is kind of like a mathematical problem. You have a sphere, a bubble, how do you turn it inside out without cutting it? And it's a big topological question. So my answer to that question is flying rainbow lasagna. Let me see if I can find my Mobius strip. Sorry if I'm looking off camera. Ah, look at that, guys. I have it meticulously organized right here. Here's my Mobius strip. Mobius was a wonderful mathematician. This is just one of his contributions to the world of math. It's the topological idea of taking a strip of anything, one strip of wood or one strip of paper, giving it one twist, and then joining the ends together. So this is like a piece of wood, and it's been twisted and then joined right here. And what you end up getting is a shape that only has one surface. That if I take my finger and I'm tracing the outside of this surface, outside is any part of the surface that faces the room, and I'm not lifting up my finger, all of a sudden, oh, look at that, now I'm on the inside of this strip. And here, oh, I'm tracing with my finger. I'm on the inside, 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 inside. Oh, look at that. Now I have to move my finger, but I'm on the outside of that strip of wood now. Outside, 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 outside. But now I'm back to the inside and the outside, and also works with the edge. Like, look, I'm tracing what looks to be, well, I guess this is the right edge on your screen, right edge on your screen, right edge on your screen. Oh my goodness, look, now I'm on the left edge. Now I'm on the left edge on your screen. Now I'm gonna go all the way around. Look, I'm going all the way around, and now, oh look, I'm on the right edge again. So basically there's only one edge. There's not a left or a right edge. There's only one edge. There's only one surface in this Mobius strip. So my contribution is similar, but not exactly the same, where we have the flying rainbow lasagna is the higher dimensional version of the torus shape, that this has two discrete surfaces, inside and outside. And in this shape, if we define the inside as being any surface that faces the interior of the sculpture, like this surface where I'm touching right now, and the outside is any surface that faces the room, the context within which we place the sculpture, then the inside and the outside become communicative. So now here, use my pen. My pen is touching the inside surface of this part of the sculpture. Now without picking up my pen, oh, I'm touching the outside surface. Now I'm back to the inside, now I'm back to the outside, now I'm back to the inside, now I'm back to the outside. And we do this 8 times going around the lasagna. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inside, outside, inside, outside, inside, outside, inside, outside. And that is the experience of doing the flying rainbow lasagna dance. So the inside, outside, we are vibrating what's inside of your body into what is outside of your body, because that cell membrane, we're not just talking about a separation from the intracellular goo from the extracellular goo. We're also talking about your epidermis. We're also talking about your mind. The idea that society teaches you that what is inside of your mind, your personal experience, is separate from and discrete from the experience of the outer world. This is the story of objective materialism. Wait, I have to drink. And I'm gotta move on to level 2 soon. The objective materialist world says, yeah, the outside world is what it is. Like the ceiling is white because it's white. It's not white because you look at it, but that's not true. The ceiling is white because you have each looked at a series of uncollapsed waveforms of potentials, of possibilities and probabilities. And through your retina and your optic nerve, your neurological structure, and also your system of perception and your consciousness, you are collapsing those waveforms into an actual experience of a ceiling that you can look at, or whatever it is that you're looking at. So yeah, each one of us has an amazing, sophisticated structure that is your personal paintbrush for painting reality. And also, oh, boss is back. Come on up, boss. Aw, have a boss break. Sometimes we just need to have a little break with my boss. The inner world, your inner world, according to society's definition up until this point, has been an intangible realm that is flimsy and maybe even stupid or disposable. Like your dreams. Society is like, your dreams are worthless. That's the word, worthless, disposable. Like, those are just your dreams. It's just your imaginations, just your thoughts. It's nothing. It's intangible. However, it's everything. It's not nothing. It's everything. It actually is hugely important. It's hugely valuable. It's the paintbrush with which we use to paint reality. So when we begin to do this flying rainbow lasagna on a cellular level, that's the big takeaway from level 1. You do the flying rainbow lasagna dance. It's not merely an intellectual exercise. It's a dance that you're actually doing on a cellular level. And what the experience in reality is of a blending together of your inner world of thoughts, dreams, and emotions, and your outer world of other people and hard-edged experiences. Because the truth is, you're not just one single unicellular organism that's looking out for number 1. You're actually part of a multicellular organism that is called the planet. You and all the other humans and the beautiful, cute dogs and the microbes and the redwood trees and blue whales and everything else are all part of that larger organism. So it is totally disingenuous and fake and fantastical, but not in a fantastic way, in a fantasy fake way, to say, I'm just me and I'm only beholden to myself and I don't have to care about blue whales. You actually do have to care about blue whales, because that is actually another aspect of yourself that is part of this larger cellular matrix that you are embedded within. I gotta drink a little bit more water. So we're talking now about creating reality. People haven't overtly asked me this, but it's always the question that's hanging in the air. Aurora, like if your inside is being manifested as your outside and you're so flying rainbow lasagna, how come you don't live in a big giant mansion and poop on a golden toilet? Like, you can ask this question. And my answer is because I actually care about how when I take my internal world, my inner world, and I externalize it, I actually care about the rest of the organisms and how it's going to affect them. I actually care about how my music is going to affect the rest of the band. Because it wouldn't be cool with me if I had a big, giant, fancy mansion with a golden toilet. I don't know why I always use that as the like example of luxury, like conspicuous consumption. I wouldn't want to do that if I was doing it at the expense of many other organisms and players in the band. That at this point, in the way that human society is structured, it's very, very challenging to be able to get to be a billionaire. You're going to step on some toes. Like if you're going to, in order to amass that amount of physical resources that it is necessary to harm or oppress or send out negative music that is screwing with the rest of the band. And it's very, very, very challenging to find benevolent and ethical sources of money and physical resources here, because we live in this inverted, satanically controlled society where basically you get paid for screwing things up. You get paid for harming your body, you get paid for harming the earth, you get paid for, and I'll go into on a different presentation, dark magic and how people actually achieve their station in life. Like, how do people get those jobs? How do people get those, to be a celebrity, to be a well-known actor, in Hollywood or whatever? How do they get those jobs? It ain't through hard work and perseverance that they are participating in dark magic in order to be able to participate on those levels of industry, and then those industries themselves are horribly polluting. So yes, it is very, very challenging to find an ethical, like a good source of resources and income on this time and place. And my dream of manifestation is not such a small dream that it only includes me having a fancy mansion with a special toilet. That my dream is for everyone to have a fancy mansion. And like I said, the ring, like Green Lantern ring. If you gave me the Green Lantern ring and I could imagine whatever I wanted, I'd imagine a factory of Green Lantern rings pumping out trillions and trillions of other Green Lantern rings that I could give to everyone so that they could all make cool things happen in their life. Because it would not be a wonderful world for me if I was living in luxury, to go take a bath in my golden bathroom, right? And everyone else that I knew was like barely had enough money for their groceries, or their teeth were all falling out, or they couldn't afford gas for their car. That would not be fun. That would not be fun at all. So I'm working on a much, much larger scale, where what I am manifesting with my flying rainbow lasagna dance every day on a cellular structure is the transformation of this planet, and the transformation of human society, and the transformation of human economy. It's a big job. It's actually a lot bigger and harder than just manifesting what would be self-serving and comfortable for me in this time and place. So yeah, that's my eventual goal is to have a transformed economy, to redefine what economy is and where, there you go, jump on down, where money comes from and how we get resources and what it takes to be quote unquote successful in this realm. I'm trying to redefine that entire thing. And that also requires the participation of other musicians in the band. It's not just something that affects me, it's something that affects all of us. So wait. So this is not the end. Don't worry, I'm not moving on to level 2 yet. I know there's questions. This has just been a taste of the lasagna. This has been a basic taste of what happens when you start to dance like a lasagna. How do you transform physically? How do you transform in terms of your life? What does it mean? There are subsequent lessons that will come up where I will get much more into the details. How exactly do you do this? How do you apply this to your own life? What is the whole procedure? Don't worry, I'm not going to leave you hanging. And also, it takes more than just 1 hour to describe this. So this is another layer of understanding that is being built, the foundation to build more of the house of understanding on top of it. The basic takeaways are, you are connected as a genetic musician to all the other musicians in this symphony of life. check out that video that's all about the music of chemistry, and it's very worthwhile, and it's entertaining. It's not like dry, boring chemistry, if you remember that from high school, some, you know, horrible, whatever, boring science teacher droning away at the front of the class. It's actually fun and cool and interesting, and it's something that you can really relate to in terms of the music of your body, and understanding that our bodies are not imprisonment cells, but are instead wonderful tools for achievement or opportunities to express and explore through, and that we can be empowered to transform our bodies and transform our experience of what time is, like what it is to be embedded in time, by learning to do something like the flying rainbow lasagna. Let me get to the rest of these questions, and then I will move on to level 2. So wait. So that was Joel's wonderful question. Pedro's great. He says, someone said our body is our temple. I agree. That is much more along the lines of what I feel for myself and what I encourage others to feel about their body. You know something? I really encourage everyone, like, to love your body in the same way that, like, I love my little dog, and you guys can see, like, I hug her, you know, I kiss her, I pet her and everything like that. I'm encouraging each one of you in a sane and appropriate way, like, you know, whatever, not necessarily like, mwah, 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 I love you, but yeah, kiss yourself, love yourself, not in a romantic sense, but love yourself, celebrate your body. And you can also do that through the ingestion of the best foods that you can do. Like if you like make a wonderful fresh salad, or I've got juice here that's from my own garden. It's like when I drink this, I'm like, I am loving my body. And you can also love your body in terms of cultivation, like whatever exercise or yoga or, you know, good healthy athleticism you're engaged in, that is all loving your body as part of celebrating. Like, man, I don't know if any of you have ever had a disease or a broken bone or something that kept your body from functioning, but when your body is finally functional again, you're like, I love my body. Like, I can run around, I can do stuff, I can lift stuff, I can go places, I can do things. Like mobility and freedom and independence, that all comes from having a body. It's wonderful. It's not a chore, it's not a burden, and those senses of burdensomeness are programmed in from the horrible invaders that don't want you to appreciate your body. And I told you that on a previous lesson. If those occupiers of the interstices, if the peanut gallery is ever criticizing you, they're like, you're so ugly, you got freckles on your face. You'd be like, I have a face. Like, you don't even have a face. How can you criticize me and my face? Because I think there's a lot of that, of people not enjoying their appearance, people not enjoying aspects of their face, and then they're like, I want to get rid of my freckles, or I want to get eyelash implants, or whatever is your thing that you feel like you're not good enough. That all comes from those horrible invaders, that you're totally good enough. When you really reach these levels of profound truth, you're like, wow, everything about my body is absolutely perfect and I love it and it's fantastic to be here. So, and that's like, that would be considered healing. That when we're all healed on a genetic, intellectual, and social level, that we are like, wow, I'm celebrating being here. I'm celebrating having a body and being mobile and being healthy and being able to do all these things. Okay. So that's on the idea of body being a temple, which is something that is sacred. Like, no one's like, oh, like that church over there is so worthless and disposable. Everyone's like, oh, church is special. Yes, everyone should be like, wow, this body is so special. And that the big thing is that you don't expect to die. You don't expect to be like, oh, this body is so special, so I'm going to veer off the road of life and hit the membrane of death, and then I'll die, and then I'll be free. The conclusion, the logical conclusion is, hey, this body is so special, so I'm going to treat it really well, aim for eternal life, and that is what makes the body transform into its eternal form. Like, you don't have to die. You don't have to have a physical cellular death. You can flying rainbow lasagna, which is transcending death. And people be like, oh, what are that crazy? You crazy pants, that's not possible. Yes, it is possible. We are in a new time, a new realm. There's new rules. Time to explore the new rules of reality, which do not have to include mortality and hitting the membrane of death, which can include instead a metamorphosis or a transformation. And I'm always very clear on this when I say metamorphosis, and if I use the analogy of a caterpillar into a butterfly, none of this is about Monarch, MK Ultra, any of these. Like, the symbology has been stolen, and the personal awakening has also been stolen in that whole MK Ultra mind control kind of idea, that it hijacks the natural metamorphosis and awakening process and twists and distorts it and makes people go insane. So the whole point is, the metamorphosis is real. God is real. Your transformation from one state into another state is very, very real. And yes, occult societies have tried to hijack and distort it for a very long time. So don't pay attention to their verbiage, to their descriptive language, and try not to. And also, never misinterpret me if I am talking about achieving that central core timeline, right? Here, where's my things you can see? Going up the center here and being quote unquote saved like a perfected term paper. I'm not talking about what Luciferians would describe as the apotheosis of the ego. And I have to make this distinction because I've just been learning about what Luciferian doctrine is, and that they will say like, oh yeah, you know, God is not real and the only God is you, and your God, basically your ego is God. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. They're more talking about like a demiurge, an ego that is an unformed infantile presence that gets artificially elevated to the level of divinity and then goes, you know, stomping and pooping in its diaper all over on a cosmic level. That is not the divine. The divine is when each one of us is refined from our temporal persona. Your ego is your temporal persona. It's the story of you when you're embedded in time. When you're a fish swimming in the river of time, you develop this story of self. First I was here, then I was here, then I went here, now I'm here, and that's my name, and that's who I am. That's your ego, your story of time. But if you pop out of the river, and all of a sudden you're flying up above the landscape, and you can see the entire river, and you can see all the tributaries, and you can see who you've been before, and who you're going to be in the future, you get a different sense of self, a dilated presence, expanded view, a dilated view of who you really are. And then you begin to identify with not just the fish swimming in the river, but you're the water, you're the landscape, you're the planet, you're the microbes, you're the everything. That begins to be the higher dimensional viewpoint. And that's what I'm talking about when I say we have that moment of recognizing I am God. That each one of us expands to that level and recognizes that we're God, we're the creator, we're the composer, we're the musician, we're the everything. But that's a big distinction between that and the literal worship of the unformed infantile ego that's, you know, doing its coprophilia all over the entire cosmos. So now Liz says, okay, newbie question. After setting the 8 lobes and jumping the singularity simultaneously, then what? How does the pencil eraser activate? So what's happening on a cellular metabolic level is your DNA is doing a new dance, is rearranging events in a new way. So when I'm doing this consciously with my daily waking intellect, first of all, I let go of my cares of my ego as Aurora. Because Aurora, like, I need to get my oil changed, I need to buy toilet paper, I need to do all these different things. And, you know, I'm hungry, I want to make some scrambled eggs and eat scrambled eggs. Those are all, like, that's like Aurora's agenda. When I start doing the Flying Rainbow Lasagna dance, my mind goes into an expansive presence, and I'm caring not just about Aurora and her toilet paper and oil change. I'm caring about all of the organisms that are surrounding and interacting with Aurora, and all of the, like, what makes my house work, where does the electricity come from, how do I have, you know, coconut milk to drink in the refrigerator, that I'm now caring about everything that feeds into that concentrated presence that is Aurora. And so sometimes when I'm doing the dance, my mind wanders, and then I might think about something that's very personal or ego-based during the dance. I'm not like in the cosmic presence. At a certain point of the dance, and I'll describe this more in subsequent lessons when I do the actual hand movements and body movements. So I'm making things happen, and then I do a part where I'm erasing. And it's a hand motion that's like this, that is a bringing together, similar to what it looks like when cells are in mitosis, which is cell division, where these would actually be like V's of DNA, like the V shape of DNA actually coming together in a spherical format. So I'll be dance, and then it's time to bring it together. And that is like a measure close. In music theory, you've got measures of music. A measure is like a paragraph. You've got a measure, and then you've got a break, a measure and a break. So what I do is I do a format, a melody, like, okay, we're gonna play. That's a melody, that's a part of, that's going in the genetic code. And then we'll do a measure break. And that's like locking everything in. And as I'm bringing my hands together, I'm intending to erase all the stuff that is not supposed to be there. So sometimes in my paintings, I'll do pencil guidelines. Here's a pencil. I'll do, you know, guidelines that are intentional, but they're not part of the finished project. because they're just in pencil and they'll be erased before I do all the painting and all the final ink and everything like that. It's okay to do that in life too. You make rough sketches with your mind where you're kind of like, I'm sketching this, it's just kind of, you know, casual, it's not perfect. And then when you're ready for everything to be perfect, you erase your sketch lines. And that's this motion that I'm doing here. So it's an erasure of anything that is an unintentional, errant thought, or sometimes like my pinky wants to press this note, but instead I press this note. So it's like, you know, you didn't exactly hit the right note. It's just, it wasn't intentional, or paint dripped. Sometimes when I'm painting, paint drips. And it's like, oh, wipe that up. That's not supposed to be there. That's what that movement is. It's a erasure of things that aren't supposed to be there, including personality characteristics. That could be other people, that could be demonic. And that is, so it's like I'm making things happen, erasing the things I don't want to have happen. And then, you know, when I complete my dance, you know, take off my headphones or turn off the music or whatever, then I step into the experience that I just created. I've just danced reality into experience. I've just created a series of events. I erased all the things I don't want to have happen. And then I go throughout my day. Like I might look on the Google News and be like, what's going on in the world? Because I just contributed to those events. All of the articles that I'm and the events that I'm reading about there, I'm like, okay, something in my dance that I just did rearranged reality, and now it is being evidenced in these events here, or whatever you are seeing that is new in your environment that wasn't there before you did your dance. So it's a cumulative dance, also in a similar way to a time crystal. I'm way over time on my level 1 presentation, but yes, and I'll get into more of what a time crystal is. But basically, it is cumulative, where we're doing this music on one day, and then that music on the next day, and then that music on the next day, and it all adds up together. So I will answer this more extensively in future presentations, because I want to finish this up. There's so much, oh my goodness, so much to talk about here. Pedro says those curses can be blocked, right, or reflected. Absolutely. Curses, which is the taking away of energy, can be blocked or reflected by using the Merkaba shield and by lots of other different techniques for like spiritual battle or interdimensional battle. Yeah, Liz is agreeing with me about all of the artificial things that people wear under their clothes in these, like, you know, air-conditioned offices and stuff like that. Spanx. I mean, that's like a torture device. I've never had one of those, but I know what they are. It's like super girdle for your body and your booty. It's like sucking you in all directions. Like, that is not comfortable. And like, you know, you got your stomach all sucked in. And how can you eat your food? You can't eat your food. You're like in a sausage casing. That's what it is. It's modern day sausage casing. It's not comfortable. Dominic says, is there any use for thinking? Empathy and intention would be beyond thinking. I would say the only use for thinking is your true mind. Like my true mind up here, I used to think like I couldn't get stuff done unless I used my administrative mind, my daily human waking intellect, where you think, first I gotta do this, then I gotta do this, then I gotta do this. And when I started to learn to turn off or suppress my daily waking mind, my linear mind, I found that I got everything done anyway. You know something, somehow I still managed to cook my food and wash my dishes and brush my teeth and all these things without first having to have my mind think, oh, it's this time of day. Now it's time for me to do this. Now it's time for me to do this. Now I have to do this. Now I have to do this. And in 5 minutes I have to do this. And then in 10 minutes I have to do this. All of that wasted energy I found was not actually helping to support my journey through the physical realm. So yeah, it's totally, at this point, I'm used to journeying from moment to moment without having to think with my human mind. I use my true mind. And my true mind is the mind that I use when I'm playing the piano or painting paintings or whatever. It is a mind of pure insight, not a linear or verbalized mind. So yeah, mostly mind is very wasteful and ineffective and not needed here in this time and place. But mind will tell you, I'm the most important part of you, don't get rid of me. That's what it'll say about itself. It's like if you run a company and you have one of those workers that like never does anything, but it's always there, like sitting at his desk, like rearranging his pencils or doing some nonsense work. And that worker will be the guy that will say, like, if you have to downsize, be like, don't fire me. I'm the backbone of this company. I'm totally important. I rearrange pencils all day long. And so you kind of know, like, that guy, he is not important to the company, but he thinks he is. That is the human mind. that it is not actually so vital and important to your body, to your trajectory through time, to you doing all the things you need to do. It is that stuffed shirt sitting behind a desk that says that it's very, very needed. Pedro says, we choose to be here and we choose our body, question mark. What else do we choose before coming into this world? So we do choose to be here and we do choose our body. Hold on. That does not mean that we choose a diseased body, because people will often misinterpret that by saying, oh, you got cancer, you chose to have cancer, you deserve it. No, I think we really chose to be here and come here for life's adventure and be able to live in a state of total health and vitality. And then that choice gets like misdirected. And then you end up being like, oh, and now I have to deal with this, and I have to deal with this. So yeah, no, I don't think that we choose to be diseased, and I don't think that we choose to be abused. Even though, I mean, that's tough because of my own journey of coming here and coming here as Aurora. Part of it was, you know, being abused, but rectifying the abuse issue on this whole entire planet. So I will say, I don't think that anyone chooses to come here to be a victim. That's it, to be victimized. I definitely came here on a mission where I chose, okay, I can see that there's this abuse or debasement that will happen. However, I'm not victimized by it. My response is flying rainbow lasagna and reprogramming time field and healing on a profound level. So that is the value that I saw of this opportunity to be in this body. But I don't think that anybody says like, yeah, I want to come volunteer to be murdered or volunteer to be raped, or that's a huge distortion and justification. Because when people think that, then if you see somebody who want to be murdered or raped, you're like, oh, that guy volunteered for it. It was part of his mission. It's what he's supposed to be here for. It's like, no, no one is disposable. No one is meant to be some kind of mannequin for torture and torment. None of us signed up for that. So that's like the subversion of our true life, of who we're supposed to really be. I do think that we choose our families. However, it's just like false advertising. Or like you're going down the ice cream list, you're like, oh, this one sounds good, but then it turns out to be really different than what you thought it would be. So you're like, oh, whatever, suburban Indiana, let's go with that family. And then you go there and you get born in that family, you're like, oh, this flavor it's not like what I thought it was going to be when I read that on the ice cream board. So I think that's what some of it is too. But then I'm finding from my own experience here of being Aurora is that there is a value, even though there are many distortions in the experience that I've had here and in biological family members. There's a value in the healing that I'm able to experience personally and radiate outwards to others. So even if you're born into a very screwed up family situation, or if you experience abuse, there are still values it can be valuable in that you have an opportunity to heal. And that's what, that's what my experience is of being here. Dominic has a question, says, if you are moving with your eyes closed, you can sense it. You can replicate this feeling. Can you do FRL in that way? What an interesting question. So the way that I do FRL, a lot of the time I have my eyes closed because I'm focused on my inner movie screen. And what it looks like to me, I'm not just doing random hand movements. It looks like to me like a virtual reality. There are some of these games now where you have like controllers, like different hand controllers. You're holding on to like joystick type things. I know my words show that I'm from a previous century, but you're holding on to joysticks and you're got a virtual reality headset on, and it might be like, like you're hitting things that it looks like things are flying at you and you're doing things in response to what is flying at you. That is what it looks like to me. I'm not just flying blind. I see the time field. I'm like pointing to my paintings over here. It looks like my paintings. I close my eyes and I find myself in a realm where there are different shapes and lines and light sources and textures. There are different things that are going on that I'm interacting with. And when I do my hand movements, like if you ever watched a video of me doing it, I'm not just waving my hands around in weird random patterns or, being spastic. I'm specifically responding to something that is there. And I told you this on another recording. Someone was saying to me like, oh, Aurora, you're doing good with your exercises. You're working out and your arms look muscular. All of my muscles come from pushing and pulling the levers of the cosmos. Like that is what I'm doing when I do this dance. So yeah, it's not just random. It's not just arbitrary or, waving your arms around. There's an actual thing that's going on. That is the music of the cosmos. And I can hear and sense the music of the cosmos. And I am now a good enough musician to be able to respond to that music. And I'm jamming with the cosmos. That is what I'm doing when I'm doing these motions. And this is how experts fly on a spaceship. We don't fly on a clank clank metal spaceship, and we don't like get into a space suit and get all like strapped in and like I'm like, you know, in suspended animation like this. That's not how I fly through time and space. I fly through time and space dancing like that. It is a dance. It is a dynamic movement that is generating and moving through time, space, and consciousness. So this is Dominic is saying like being in a car that starts rolling, but you're not actually looking. So what are my kinesthetic feelings of when I'm doing this? Sometimes I do feel like I am going down a tunnel, or like I'm a downhill skier. I've never done downhill skiing, and I have to protect my brain. I can't like knock into things or get, you know, hit my head. But, you know, sometimes I feel that feeling that I imagine it would be like if you are shushing down a slope. Sometimes it feels like I don't do bicycles either because of, you know, brain injury, but it's that same type of thing. Like if you're in a bicycle or in one of those recumbent bikes where you kind of lean back and you feel like you're heading down. So yeah, there is a feeling of motion. So there's a feeling of being in a context. There are things that I'm interacting with, and there is a feeling of motion. But at a certain point, that feeling of motion becomes so complex that it is beyond my linear mind, because I'm doing calculations that are based on multidimensional experience. So I'm like, okay, I'm dealing with an impulse that might be coming from millions of years ago and an impulse that's coming from the future. And how do I integrate all of this? And none of that is with my talking mind. All of it is like jazz music that I am improvising in the moment because I'm doing it in response to what the other musicians are doing. So you're asking really interesting questions. Thank you for your questions. Mandy says, so when does spirit enter the body then? This is a good question about gestating in a body. Is it in the womb day one or later in trimester, or when baby draws first breath? And how does this enter human flesh or conceived with us? Or is spirit part of our energy field? So in order to even gestate the little container for consciousness, your willpower, your spirit has to be a part of it. Even though if it's only a couple of cells, it is not developed enough to be able to yet be a container for your consciousness. So first you're like, okay, I'm just trying to get this little, you know, thing to kind of grow to be complex enough for me to even put my mind and my spirit inside of it. Your spirit, your consciousness exists, or your spirit exists independent of the flesh. So, I mean, like if we were talking about abortion or anything like that, like from the moment of conception, that being is alive, even though it's in a very simplified format. It is alive, but it's not yet complex enough to be a container for consciousness. Consciousness exists outside of the container. And it's kind of like getting into a swimming pool. Like first you dip your big toe in the pool, then you dip your foot in the pool, then you dip your whole leg in the pool. Like you get more and more and more of yourself gets integrated into that neurological and, you know, like little biological structure there until finally your consciousness can actually be in that. So it's a gradual process as the container becomes more and more complex to be able to contain consciousness. And yeah, there is a very crucial moment when the baby emerges from the womb and is separated from the mother and takes its first breath, because that's when your timeline as an individual begins. When I draw that time vortex all the time, and if I just hold up this sculpture, the time vortex is being the bottom quadrant of this sculpture, and where I'm placing my pen, that's the plane of birth, like the zero, where you're starting off the running race, right? Like you're starting from the starting line. That moment zero, the starting line, is counted from when you emerge from your mommy and take your first breath. That's when you can exist on your own timeline, when you don't have to be on your mommy's timeline. Because up until that point, it's kind of like your lives overlapped. If something happened to your mommy when you're in the womb, that thing happens to you too. And so in order for you to be independent, like you have to be born, and then anything can happen to your mom. You know, she can, whatever, move to China, you know, have her head chopped off, any kind of thing can happen to her. Her life ending or changing is not going to have an impact on you, and you now can go in whatever direction you need to go. So yeah, that moment of separation is a crucial moment in your own personal development. Okay. Liz says, Mandy, I've heard that spirit descends at around 2 months or when the heart starts beating. That's interesting. And I've also heard some Buddhists from the Far East that talk about 48 days, that it takes a certain number of days of gestation. And it also has to do with the development of the pineal gland, that at a certain point, the inner glandular system of the brain is developed enough to have an actual pineal gland and to emit DMT. And DMT is kind of like the molecular doorway for consciousness traveling into and out of the body. So those are the more science-based or Buddhism-based interpretations of that question. and not necessarily what I believe, but what others believe. Mandy says, when passed over, should we wish not to incarnate as all done, no karma, not volunteering? Should we stay in the dark and never head for the light, as that's the light to the emergency, emerge and see the room of the hospital, born again? I know what you're talking about. So, okay, whatever are the rules that have gone on up until this point, you can throw them out the window, because we are now in a completely new realm where all those old rules about, you know, how you should, like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, Bardo Todal, or however that is to be pronounced. This is the Tibetans were and are very good scientists or observers of the passage of, you know, death to birth, like the reincarnation process. They're actually very good. They have a lot of information about that based on their lineages and observation of, you know, souls literally being transferred from generation to generation. And they wrote a whole book about, like, yeah, when you die, don't go to the first light, don't go to the second light, like go to this light over here, because then you'll get born in a better body. All of those rules were effective up until the point that the flying rainbow lasagna was invented, okay? And hold on, I'm drinking. Now that that's already been invented, oh, I see you have your beautiful furry overlord there, Christine. That's so awesome. That's wonderful. I see him right there. Is that Charlie? Yeah, I think that's Charlie. Yeah, now that the flying rainbow lasagna has been invented, all of those old rules are no longer applicable. And all old prophecies are also no longer applicable. So that means anything that's in the Bible, the book of Revelations, Nostradamus, whatever people are trying to use as like crumbs of information to guide them through life, like none of those things are applicable anymore, because you now have the capacity to awaken your own inner eye and see down the road of time. And you don't have to have all of these external things that are telling you what to do. So it's like, instead of saying, oh, my teacher told me, like, oh, always play a C sharp, always play a C sharp, always a C sharp, you know, never an E flat, only a C sharp. But it's like, that's old rules for an old song that isn't being played anymore. You might need to play a different note now. It might not always be a C sharp. So everything that's been passed down from these lineages, from occult traditions, from mystery schools, all of that, you got to be selective about how you apply everything, because a lot of those rules no longer matter. So if you're really questioning, like, what am I supposed to do when I die in order to not get recycled from the moon or Saturn's cube or any of those things? People are like, we hate being recycled. I understand your frustration. The answer is you don't die. The answer is you do not die. This is a big thing to break through. The expectation that death is inevitable. If this is your life and you want to be aligned like this, where my pen is, and go back to that central core where you emitted from, you don't want to go to the edge and be askew and hit that membrane at all. The answer is you don't hit that membrane. It's not like, Aurora, once I hit the membrane, where should I go? It's like, you shouldn't hit the membrane. It's like saying, Aurora, if I want to get to my destination, like I'm driving from, you know, Texas to California, once I drive off the road, where should I go? I'm like, guys, you should not drive off the road. If you want to get from Texas to California, you should get on I-40 and head west and stay on the road. That is how you go there. So if you want to get from the divine source that we're coming from into the material reality world and then back to the divine source, you stay on the road. You don't die. You don't go into that realm of the world between worlds that we would call like the interstices or the afterlife or whatever. You don't go into that world. Okay, so Joelle says, Aurora, so are we jumping it up and down 8 times for the 8 lobes before we reorient it to a different direction? Really, really good question. I've almost used up all of my time for level 2 on level 1. I keep on doing this. The answer is really, I have it in subsequent lessons, and I have a video that I can share with you. But it's all, you can do a combination of any of those movements in any direction you want to. So the basic answer to this is, because it's relevant and you shouldn't have to wait many weeks in order to find out the answer. I teach everyone, okay, first just do a basic up and down. That's when we get the band warmed up. Microbes, jump up and down. Everybody, jump up and down. Trees, jump up and down. And then once you master, that's like master a C. Play a C, play a C, play a C. Like learn that chord. And once you master that, then you can also be like, okay, well, I'm going to do an up, down. Then I'm going to learn a side, side. And then I can practice up, down, side, side, up, down, side, side. And then once you've mastered up, down, side, side, you can then add in, out. And once you've got 3 variables, you can do up, down, side, side, in, out. Or you can do up, down, in, out, side, side. You can do different combinations. And side, side, then you can also do end over end over end. So when I do my flying rainbow lasagna dance, every one of my trillions of cells is doing its own particular melody and beat. And what I will sometimes do is up, side, out, in, twist, untwist. The basics of this are that the more variables you can do and the more unpredictable your dance is, the better things will be. If I, oh my goodness, I'm like almost at the end of this. Wait, because I want to talk about quantum physics and Newtonian physics. Hold on. Okay. There are different, in Earth's surface science right now, there are different rules that determine the movement of macroscopic bodies, like things that are on the scale of you and me and bowling balls and planets and galaxies, as opposed to little tiny subatomic particles that are so small that they're like chopped up pieces of reality, that the chopped up pieces of reality act according to a different set of rules than the rules that are up here. So if I'm looking at the stars going across the sky, or like a planet going across the sky in its orbit, it is predictable. I know, oh, it's going to be here in the sky on this night, and then it's going to move this much. The next night it's going to be here, and the next night it will be here, and then I can predict the next night it's going to be over here. Or throwing a baseball, like I'm going to throw a baseball, it's going to be going in an arc across the sky like this. So it's all predictable. That the laws of physics and how these macroscopic movements happen are all predictable. And that means like, okay, if something is going to be going across the sky and I know it's going to get here on this time on this day, and I want to stop it from moving, I can put a barrier there. I can be like, oh, large macroscopic object, I'm going to put something here so you can't fly any further. That's totally different than the way that subatomic particles act like electrons in an atom. So if we have the atom, we have the central nucleus, and then we have electron shells that are around that central nucleus. And those electron shells are just areas of possibility and probability, just like, pardon me so much, the areas that surround our own physical bodies. Areas of possibility and probability where we can say, well, the electron has a likelihood of being in this shell, but we can't say exactly where it is. That's the quantum level. There's a likelihood, but we can't say exactly where it is. There are possibilities and probabilities. There are numeric representations of the likelihood of something happening, but we can't actually say what's happening. Everything is happening. That's what's happening in your life on the level of the time field, where you can say that this, time vortex is a collection of timelines that are all the possibilities and probabilities of your life, and that it's all happening. All the deaths are really happening, and all the narrow escapes from deaths and embracing of life is also all really happening. So, hold on, I'm drinking water. Predictability. If you're going to walk down the street from point A to point B and someone wants to stop you, they'll just put something in between point A and point B, like a car wreck or a piano falls on your head. I have to drink more water. Hold on a second. But if you're a little electron and someone wants to stop you from doing what you're doing, they don't know where you are. It's like, oh, we can't stop you from going from point A to point B because you're already at both point A and point B and point Z and point every place. You're everywhere. And so, sorry, my voice it's very dry in here too. The idea of doing flying rainbow lasagna means that you begin to move in a motion through time that is unpredictable. Because right now we're moving in a motion through time that's very predictable. Like it used to be 2:48, now it's 4:04. We've all moved in a linear fashion through time. And that means if someone wants to stop us from getting to 4:04, all they have to do is drop a piano on our head at 4:03, and then we stop moving through time. However, if we become unpredictable flying rainbow lasagnas, that means, well, it's 4:04, but then it can be 3:58. Then it can be 7:32. Then it can be 10:52 from 5 years ago. Then it can be 11 a.m. in 5 million years. We begin jumping through time in such an unpredictable pattern that no one can stop us. You're unpredictable. And the one that wants to stop us, the no one of that, it is an ancient AI, an ancient artificial intelligence that doesn't have the capacity to innovate, to make up new songs on the fly in the moment. It can only play the recorded score of the cosmos as it's already been recorded. So all this flying rainbow lasagna, and why I want to do it and why I want to encourage everyone else to do it, the more variables, the harder it is to crack the encryption. The more variables, the more it is like saying F you to this control system that is machine-based intelligence that doesn't have the capacity to innovate. So every one of us that is doing flying rainbow lasagna with our DNA and experiencing time in a new, unpredictable way that is closer to what is happening with the electron movements on a quantum level, we are rearranging reality into levels of unpredictability that are not able to be superseded. And that's the whole point. That's how we win. And when I say that, when you look around the world, if you're like, things are getting kind of weird, like this world feels to me like a lucid dream. Like how do we have a person who's a former reality TV show, you know, media mogul, real estate? How did that guy get into politics and get to be elevated to be the president of the United States? Like, how did this happen? Like, this is a weird dream at this point. Yes, it is a weird dream. And the more that we recognize that our own minds are embroidering and weaving together the events of this weird dream. And then when you realize you're in a dream, you're like, wait a minute, I'm in a dream. I'm going to fly like Superman, fly like Superman. Or I'm going to go eat lots and lots of ice cream because it's a dream. I can do whatever I want to do. Like, once you begin to recognize that you're in a dream and that you're able to have an impact on the embroidery of reality, then we can begin to use the paintbrush of our mind to actually create a happy and comfortable reality. That is also what I'm doing with Flying Rainbow Lasagna. I want to create a happy and comfortable reality for myself and also for everyone else. And I don't want it to have to be like, okay, I want Christine to have a happy reality, so I'm going to imagine good things for her, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I do, but I want it to be like, Christine, here's Flying Rainbow Lasagna. Like, you imagine whatever you need. Because that's like, wow, you can get whatever. You don't have to ask for Aurora's permission. Like, Aurora, like, I need to get a new coffee maker. Can I have a new I have to imagine that up for you. Like, no. You imagine your own thing. That's the whole point. The Green Lantern rings. Everybody can imagine up exactly what they need for their own life. That no one, I don't want to have to be an intermediary for anyone else. No one has to ask me for permission. It's like, oh, Flying Rainbow Lasagna, can I please have a new coffee maker? Like, no, here, have a Flying Rainbow Lasagna and make your own thing happen. And that's being an artist of reality. And that's my value system. And that's my approach to being here. So wait, let me get to the rest of these questions. Oh, that's nice. Pedro's sharing a cool video of DNA. We'll check that out later. Yeah, Joelle is agreeing with the idea when people say it's all in your head, it's not real. That's not when people say your imagination is nothing. Your imagination is what makes reality happen. That everything that's in your head becomes manifested as everything that's outside of your head. That's when you start to realize you're in this crazy lucid dream, and we have all collectively manifested very strange events that are all part of our healing. Like, that's what it is. So Dominic is saying, a magician hypnotized a man so he could not see his daughter. He could read the time on a clock behind her, and his daughter was invisible in his reality. Yeah, this is the power of our mind and our perception. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's a good one. Liz's response to that. Pedro says, I think the word you are looking for is propaganda. Yeah, thank you for that. Sometimes you can tell, like, the wiring just takes a little while for the word to come through. So Mandy says, how do we clear the rubbish stuff that comes at us and rid the layers of negative folks and let down, the unreliable, when shining bright, I feel the demonic, see this and want to shut it down to send mischief dodgy people that, okay. Is there drama dump or parasited on how to stop, clear, and rid all of this as empathy suffer? Okay, so I think Mandy is new and she might not know the answer. The answer is to send those beings to entropy. Let me drink more water. Entropy means loss of energy. So when we meet these demonic presences or perturbations of the field or things that are not supposed to exist, you don't have to say to them, hey, you're a thing that's not supposed to exist. Stop existing. No, that's not what you have to do. What you can do is, it's kind of like in that old movie Ghostbusters, where they've got like a machine and they hit the ghost. The ghost is like the supernatural residue, which is what we're talking to here. The supernatural residue then gets, sucked into a box and stuck in a prison. It's similar to that. It's the idea of taking energy away from the supernatural residue that is not actually supposed to be in existence. So everything about that supernatural residue, the demon, the occupier of the interstice, the ghost, the parasite, whatever you want to call it, and even if it is existing through the genetic expression of a physical living being, it's not supposed to be in existence. It's an aberration, a thing that is not supposed to exist, like energy out of place. And what you can do is take the energy from that place where it's not supposed to be and flying rainbow lasagna it over to where it is supposed to be. Because most of those demons, malevolent beings, have stolen their energy very intentionally from their victims. They raped, they murdered, they tortured, and that's how they even have energy to use to talk to you while you're in your body. And when they talk to you in your body, you're like, hey, where's your body? You don't have a body? Oh, so you stole a bunch of energy from someone who once had a body and now you want to have a conversation with me? Not only no, I'm not interested in that level of conversation, but and I'm going to take all of your energy, siphon it off, and send it back to the people that you stole it from, which might have been 10,000 years ago or 5 years ago, or it might be someone in the future. Send it, it's like repatriating it back to the person that you're supposed to be. So I have much more detailed explanations about that, but that's the short answer. You send them to entropy. I might have to just make this another one big giant upload because I've already used up like my level 2 time. So thank you for understanding, because I want to get through the rest of these questions and there's a lot here. So I might just do that again. I did that last week. Pedro says, so you see the time field and you choose where to fit it in with other people, family, and friends. So I think you're talking about how what my first person experience is like of doing the flying rainbow lasagna. And what it feels like to me is not like I'm seeing like that. I want to, like, it's not like seeing people or stick figures or anything that looks like a third dimensional reality. It looks like an abstract reality where there are shapes and particles and forces and different things that fit together like puzzle pieces. And the puzzle pieces, they're topological. They look like these types of things, and they're color coded. And it's like playing Tetris or some other video game, but it's even way more complex. And so the fitting together and rearranging of events is happening on that level of pure abstraction, on the level of the musical score. And rearrange all the notes on the page, and then you rearrange the notes on the page, you're also rearranging the events of reality. So of course I am rearranging the events of reality, wanting goodness for my own friends or my own family, but I don't want that at the expense of other people or other blue whales or other butterflies. I want everybody to be able to thrive, including all organisms. So then you have to be a real expert. If you really want to be in this symphony of life, it means you want the hydrogen and the oxygen to be happy, as well as the macroscopic people to be happy, as well as the planetary structure to be happy, and also doing this across time. That it's not just about healing this moment now, that it is about setting right the arrangement of time and events in time throughout the entire time field. And that's big because there are really screwed up things that happened in deep antiquity that still affect us today. So in order for us to be healed in this moment now, our healing has to radiate backwards into deep antiquity and heal and affect those ancient events and ancient people and ancient participants. And you're allowed to do that. It's like saying, I'm going to play my music backwards in time. I'm going to fix things now, and I'm going to fix the past too, and I'm going to fix the future too. And that you're allowed to do that. That's another part of this flying rainbow lasagna. It's the attitude. You have a badass attitude. Do it. Do it. Because there will be so many things that will come up and they will say, you're not allowed to. Oh, no, no. Very naughty. I'm going to stop you. And you have to be like, I'm allowed to fly rainbow lasagna. I'm doing it. You know, whatever is your symbol of freedom, like hold up your fist. I'm doing it. Yeah, it's being a wild, undomesticated consciousness. Like I use the example of a wolf all the time running around in the woods. The wolf doesn't ask you for permission like, hey, am I allowed to run around in the woods? Am I allowed to go eat that rabbit over there? It's like, screw you. I'm going to run around in the woods and eat a rabbit. This is your equivalent of running around in the woods. It's being free in your experience of time. Be undomesticated and free in your experience of time. And yeah, you don't have to ask some kind of an overlord like Einstein or a bunch of scientists or your mom or your dad or the Pope. Like, am I allowed to rearrange time? You don't have to ask them for permission. And when you start to rearrange time, all of these social constraints rear their ugly head and they say, who do you think you are to rearrange time? And how do you know what's the right thing to do? And how do you blah, blah, this? And you can just, so in my flying rainbow lasagna dance, one of the things I've had to do is develop defensive maneuvers, just like if someone is trying to, you know, harm you physically and you've got different blocking maneuvers, blocking, blocking, blocking. So because my whole dance is not about a dance of like defensive maneuvers, my dance is a dance but I've had to figure out, like, imagine you're trying to do like some wonderful ballet or some wonderful waltz, and someone is trying to do like wrestling or, you know, like hurt you at the same, punching you in the face at the same time. So you're like trying to do your waltz, but then you're like punch, 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 you know, with the music, and then get you out of there and then go on with the music. That's what I've had to learn. So one of the things that I'll do when I feel those attacks coming is a sweep, like grabbing it and just flicking it off to the side. Like, oh, we'll just take that and flick it off to the side and then continue with the waltz, you know, dancing with my beautiful partner, that is the cosmos. Because what the dance, the Flying Rainbow Lasagna dance, is not a dance that's like, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna punch everybody in the face, like punch you, punch you, punch you. It's not like that. It is much like when I paint my paintings. I'm not like, I am going to punch people with my painting. That's not what it is. My paintings are an expression of who I am inside. They're my music. This is my music. I'm playing my music. But if someone else comes along and they want to stop me from playing my music, if I'm like trying to paint and they're like, no, Aurora, I want to steal your paintbrush away from you. I want to take your hand and make it move like this. And then I'm like, well, you know something, that's not allowed. So I have to sweep you away and to kind of like, you know, like taking a cobweb away, but take you away and go to that direction over there. So yeah, I've developed all these different things. And one day I would like to do an actual video or a live presentation about what the dance actually looks like. And I'm trying to figure out what's a good, like, you know, context to be able to share that, because it's a special activity. It's not just a mundane, it's a magical activity. And it's something that you share with special people, not just share with, you know, it's not like whatever, like, it's not like an entertainment, like someone wants to tune in and watch you do a magical spell with the cosmos. Like, that's not on the level. So it would have to be with people that understand it. But anyway, I would like to share the actual movements that I'm doing with you. And when you actually see them, you'd be like, oh, that Aurora is bringing her hands together. That's the erasure movement. And oh, then from that movement also comes the expansion, which is creating more music that expands outward. And then there's, you know, the Merkaba, which is the protection around there. And then sometimes there's the sweep and flick, like, getting rid of that pesky little cobwebs that I can then move forward with ease. So there are all these different things that I've developed, but more to the point, what I want for each one of you is to develop your higher faculties, to be able to see what is actually coming at you, because your realm will look different than mine. So I'm able to see what's coming at me so that I can do all the different things, like, oh, here's the attack coming, I'm going to take it, I'm going to flick it away. You need to be able to see your own viewpoint, that something is coming towards you, or that you want to put these two things together, or that you want to make these things dance like this. Like, it's artistry. Just like when you're playing music, you're like, does that sound good? Maybe that's not what I want. Maybe I want this instead. That's what I want instead. There's aesthetic choices is what I'm trying to say. So I want everyone to be able to have their own higher faculties activated, make their own aesthetic choices, and be able to perceive if something is attacking you, because all of this is about being innovative and responsive in the moment. None of it is about a set, you know, series of movements, like, do this, always do this, then always do this, then always do that. If you do that, they're going to get you, because they're going to be able to tell, oh, they always first do this, then I can anticipate the next thing is this. So you got to always be changing it up. You can't do it the same way every day. So every day for me, it's a little different. Up, down, side, side, then in, out, backwards, forwards. Add whatever variable you possibly can to it, because that is essential toward, that's like part of your best protection, is being unpredictable. So here's a wonderful question from Gala. She says, is picking family DNA tied up with the families? So I can only speak from my own personal experience. So I know that in other, you know, parallel lives, I've had much more loving and supportive and safe family experiences, where you can let down your guard and where your family loves and nourishes you and helps you to be the best person you possibly can be. And those were more experiences of like an indigenous community, not an industrialized community in this world now. And in coming into this family, like as Aurora, and even as the previous occupant of this body, I really understand that the purpose for it, the mission, it's like that song, not a pleasure cruise. No, this was not a pleasure cruise. That this was really about an opportunity to heal a profoundly corrupted bloodline. That, and I mean, I don't know if I have family members who are ever going to watch this, and I haven't had productive conversations with biological family members about this, but let's just say in the most neutral terms that there are family demons that have been passed down and, you know, protected from multiple generations in the family bloodline that I'm presently in this body that's connected to. And part of my mission and my purpose here as Aurora is healing that particular lineage, because all of the ancestral impacts that they all distill down to you in this moment. All of your multiple millions of ancestors, that all of their influence comes into your body, but then you get to say who you actually are. So if there's some screwed up ancestor who wants to be influencing you in this body now, you can be like, no, get out of here. I don't want you to be here at all. And I've had to do a lot of that. So the part of it is cultural, the distortions of this body bloodline that I'm in. Part of it is cultural, part of it is religious, part of it is interdimensional in terms of which extraterrestrial species are influencing a particular bloodline. Like literally, some of them have tuned the guitar strings of some races on this planet, or some family expressions on this planet, to be able to hear them more easily. Like, oh yeah, we're going to genetically modify those people over there so that they can hear us, and then we're going to say we're God, and that you're listening to the voice of God. And that's, you know, this is par for the course. I'm experiencing something that many people have experienced, and my contribution is that I found a tool, to a bucket and a mop to clean stuff up, and I clean it up in my own my own body, my own heritage. So literally, I am a new lineage. My name is Aurora. My last name is Aurora. Like I changed my name. I don't have the family name of the family body that I'm, you know, that I came into here. And that was very intentional, because my genes act differently than their genes. My DNA is behaving and acting in a different way than they acted for many centuries. And I don't carry on the, what's the word, like when you have problem or something that is like unhealthy, whatever, like you know, when there's addictions or other things that are passed down in families, addictions and abuse and things like that, you are not obliged to carry that on. You don't have to be like, oh, everyone else in previous generations was an alcoholic, so I'm going to be an alcoholic too. Like, you don't have to do that. Or a victim, or a person who is abused and then who abuses others. You don't have to participate on that level. So when I came into this body as Aurora, I looked into the genetic code, because you can read it. Once you begin to open up your inner eye, you can read everything in your own body. And this, I predict, when you do this, if you haven't already had this experience, when you begin to access those information packets in your own body, you will be like, oh yeah, you would never clone yourself. You would never do these artificial things that people are doing, because you begin to see how profoundly backwards that is. How profound, it's just the complete opposite of what you want to be doing. And then you can also see exactly like, oh, this thing like that you might be experiencing now is directly connected to this, this, and this that happened hundreds of years ago from a great grandparent, and agreements that they made, and contracts that they made, and extraterrestrials that they might have interacted with. Boss is back. Oh my goodness, we need a boss break. Yes, this is Snoogly Wigglebottoms. Thank you very much. It's a dark topic, I know. So yeah, so you know, if my last name is Aurora now. My first name is no first name, and my last name is Aurora. So if I had a child and I named my child Johnny or whatever, Billy, it would be Johnny Aurora, Billy Aurora, and because my DNA is different and is acting differently, is behaving differently than the familial and ancestral DNA that I was given at the beginning of my journey here, you know, about 17 years ago. And I'm happy to say that, but family members are not necessarily that happy about that, because they feel rejected, kind of like, hey, how come you're not carrying on the family name and all of the you know, family traditions that are unhealthy and all like don't you want to be just like us? And like the answer is no, I don't want to be just like you. And that should not be offensive to anyone who's in this class. You're all free. You don't need your parents' permission to change and transform on a genetic level, like mommy, daddy. It's like, you know, you're all adults. Everyone who's in this class is old enough to make these choices. You might even be like, whatever, 60 or like 70. It's like, you're an adult. You don't have to ask for your mom and dad's permission to transform on a genetic level, because they might be like, no, I own you. You're my offspring and my chattel, and I want you to be an expression of me, or I want to live through you. Like a lot of like dads who are lawyers or doctors, and then they want their sons to be lawyers or doctors, or mothers who are beauty pageants queens, and then they want their daughters to be beauty pageant queens. It's like, I did this, I went to this college, and now you go into my alma mater and do exactly what I did too. Like, there's a lot of parents that think that they own their children, and you don't need their permission to transform on a genetic level. And even in terms of familial constraints, sometimes families will be like, I didn't raise you to do that. You're not allowed to be that way. Who do you think you are, being so free and free-spirited and being your own person? Like, that's the whole point. You're free. You're your own person. You're a free spirit. You don't have to do only the things that your parents, your grandparents would approve of. Whatever is your culture, if your culture, whatever, there are all of these limitations and constraints and all of these religions. What if you're a Jewish person and it's like, oh, you're not allowed to marry a non-Jew. You have to marry a Jew, keep the culture alive, keep the religion. Like, there's all of these things. Or sometimes that's in the Black culture, that Black people think like you can't marry a white person, you're diluting the race or whatever it is. And I'm bringing these up and they almost seem to be ridiculous, like, like ridiculous inflations of people's their viewpoints. But some people really believe that. They're like, you're marrying the wrong person. You're not allowed to love this person. You're not allowed to do this, as opposed to you being like, I am free. I'm my own person. I'm making my own choices in your profession and who you choose to romantically partner with or procreate with, and in your spirituality. That you might have been raised as a Catholic and be like, I don't believe in any of this crap about the church, and now I want to be different. And your family might be like, you're giving away all of our special, Catholicism, and why aren't you holding that on and bringing your children to confession and all of that? And you might be like, because it's horribly unhealthy and I don't want to be a part of that anymore. Like, you get to make your own choices. So yeah, I think that my best answer about choosing your own DNA and your lineage is, I think we all made choices in terms of which would be advantageous positions for us to learn and grow on a spiritual level, but that does not equate to being a victim. None of us came here to be like, oh yes, please rape and abuse me. Like, you're a little baby in diapers. Like, no one chose to be raped and abused when you're in diapers. No one chose that. That's a total misapplication of this understanding, but more in the sense of, something, being born into this family has given me a particular perspective and opportunity and viewpoint to heal my body, my family dynamic, which can also mean sometimes rejection. Sometimes if your family is unhealthy and they're doing a bunch of unhealthy things, like, you might have to reject them. Like, I do not believe in circumcision at all. And if a family member invited me to come see your new family member's baby penis be mutilated, I would be like, no, thank you, really. I don't want to be a part of that at all. And if they felt personally rejected, it's like, that's too bad, because I think that your custom is barbaric and horrific, and I actually want to do everything possible to stop people from doing that to baby penises in the future. Like, that is really how I feel. So yeah, if someone in your family is doing things that are inherently unhealthy, then it is not your obligation. You don't need my permission for this either. Like, you're free. You're allowed to be your own person. Mandy says, should we have iron in our bodies? And your thoughts on diabetes as your thoughts on copper blood would make us fly. That's a good question. I mean, I don't think that there's any particular mineral. Like, I'm a big proponent of, we don't need to have a magic elixir in order to unlock our higher faculties. Like, we need to be healthy and have access to non-polluted food. She's like, walking on sunshine. Oh, okay, interesting. Well, I am an advocate for ingesting sunshine as a source of food, but I'm not an advocate for having to take any kind of magic elixir or ormus or special micronutrients or anything like that. Like, that's not what you need in order to do something like flying rainbow lasagna. But I do eat a lot of really just, good, high quality food. Like, that's a big thing. I mean, I don't eat processed food, but you need to eat food that actually has life force, energy, and intelligence in there. So here's a long question from Joelle. She says, I've heard that the sun is dying right now, and many have seen on the solar observer that the sun is having large dark areas and even almost going completely dark right now. These pictures of the sun are getting blacked out off of media to look like a glitch. I understand what you're talking about. I've also heard and felt mystified myself that the sun is being reborn and becoming something new at the same time. What are your thoughts on this and how FRL will help us out the sun at this time? Gratitude. Thank you for your gratitude, and thank you for your services to this planet. Thank you very much, Joelle, for your recognition. So my best answer is really a reassurance that although suns and stars do have a metabolism and a lifespan, it's not like they're invulnerable. Like, even Superman has kryptonite. There are things that could be done to harm or destabilize a star that you do. I want to reassure you, like, our star is not dead. The sun is not dead. The sun is very, very much alive. And well, the level 2 presentation that I was going to do is all about how the sun literally emits and thinks through and acts through our DNA. that it starts out, these impulses start out at the galactic central core, which is the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy, which is also analogous to the central convergence point of this sculpture, and that each one of the individuated stars in the sky are nodes of consciousness that are like individual broadcasters that broadcast that same signal, and that signal comes through our DNA. That literally, when we're doing our DNA dance, we're connecting to the stars and we're manifesting what those stars are thinking. And first of all, the sun and the stars would love that we care about them. Like, we want them to be happy and healthy, and we are in a partnership with them. Like, what is sent out from the sun and the stars, we reflect back in terms of consciousness. So sun and stars can be destabilized if our consciousness is not effectively reflecting back to it. However, I don't want you to think anything like that anyone can send a nuclear bomb into the sun and explode it, or somehow surround it with a Dyson sphere, like a sphere of mirrors or solar panels that would make it so that the star dies. Like, what the truth is, stars are really, really smart. They are really, really, really smart, and they're not defenseless. Like, it's true that they're up there doing their thing and in full view of everyone. It's kind of like if you were flying across the sky and you're doing some magical kind of thing, and like everyone can see you doing that magical thing while you're flying across the sky. You have to have good defenses. You're not totally vulnerable. Just like, I'm flying across the sky and anyone can take a pot shot at me and do whatever they want to me. No, that's not allowed. So stars are incredibly intelligent, have their own willpower, have their own desire for survival and to stay alive. And they're not totally defenseless, like just letting everybody shoot whatever kind of crap they want at them or whatever. And stars are in control of time. Like, in the same exact way that we are learning to be virtuosos of time, spoiler alert, we become stars. That's what's going on right now, guys. Literal stars. Our bodies transform and we become stars. And this is like, with no condescension, our little baby steps of learning to be stars, learning to be miniature embodied stars here in this realm. So I reassure you that no, our star Sol is not going to die, and no, all of the stars of the cosmos are not going to die, even if there is a malevolent intention to make that happen. So there's many a slip betwixt a cup and a sip. That means just because an evil person wants to kill you does not mean that they will be successful in killing you. I am a very good example of that. Evil beings were like, we will sacrifice this person and make them die and destroy their body. And I'm like, no, I will fly me lasagna instead. Screw you all. And so clearly their malevolent plans have the capacity to go awry. So the sun is not going to just be like, oh, I guess this thing is trying to kill me, I guess I'll just die. Nor are any of the other stars going to be like, hey, look, our brother, our sister is being attacked down there. We're just going to let it happen and do nothing. That'll be fine. That's not how things work. That's how things work here in the satanic, horribly inverted world on Earth's surface right now. Family members cannibalize each other and they allow each other to be attacked. But that is not how things work on the stellar network, where every point of consciousness is actually part of this larger whole and works as, caring about the larger whole. So yeah, so the sun is not vulnerable, like completely defenseless. The sun is highly intelligent, and the sun is connected to an extensive, profoundly powerful network of brethren, like siblings, brothers and sisters, that love it and want it to stay alive. So yes, you can rest assured that it's not going to die. It's not going to fizzle out. It's not going to be like a candle, like you can lick a candle, like pinch out that flame. It's not like that. It's not going to go away in any way like that. And also we can help the sun on its journey by nourishing it with our consciousness. Yes, but sun is actually something very powerful and positive that is not like, I don't want to say like going to save us, but let's say it's part of the recipe of really good, cool things that are going on in our world right now. The sun is part of our transformation and metamorphosis. And that's why it has been blocked out through chemtrails. That's why there are all of these disruptions to us connecting with it directly, but it doesn't matter because you connect with it non-locally. It's not line of sight. It's not like a satellite or a laser beam that has to be line of sight. It is non-local. You can connect with the sun with your apparatus without having to be directly in view of it. So yes, Joelle says, sorry to take up your time. Please do not apologize with all the questions. Can we have another hour of class? I keep going with level 2 if everybody wants me to. Absolutely. We can take a little poll and see if it's just been too if people have the time and the patience for it. Liz says, Mandy, first protocol is gaining control of your mental realm. Awesome. W-O this, it's crapshoot. All a matter of generating the will. Yeah, so I'm agreeing with you, Liz. That's very fine advice, because gaining control of our mental realm, our mind creates reality. If we can control our mind, we can control what we are creating with our reality. And that's also why the mind was invaded. It's why the mind of humans was distorted in order to cause perturbations in the field. So in order to fix the music that we're sending out, we need to fix our minds. And that's a big part of it. Pedro says, that's why they can't stop Trump. He's unpredictable. So whatever your feelings are about President Trump as a person, what I'm trying to say about this level of being a lucid dream is that, you know, just the existence of President Trump should tell you, like, we're in levels of surreality, not reality, but it's surreality. It's surreal. It's not a real place. It's like it's like the Salvador Dali painting of melted clocks. We're in a weird place now. And yes, I think that it's like, just I told you, all the rules for prophecies and all of that get thrown out the window at this point. Same thing with a lot of the other things that would be the status quo of human society. We are going to begin to see more and more and experience more and more of things like that never would have happened before, but that are able to happen now and that are happening now. Joelle agrees. She says, that's true, Pedro. I've had the same thought. He's not a saint, but it's unpredictable and he has a good heart. So yeah, the unpredictability factor is all about superseding the AI control system that is trying to prevent any of us as humans from becoming superhumans. That we are meant to be empowered, you know, light beings, and that the artificial intelligence machine being would like to prevent us from becoming, you know, totally empowered. And so, yeah, it just keeps on trying to prevent our personal development until we get to that point. Wait, let me get to this next one. Brandon says, I had a thought today about putting one of your FRL sculptures inside of an orgone emitter. I would absolutely freaking love that. And I totally encourage it on every level. I think that would be absolutely wonderful. The idea of being an orgone emitter, each one of us can be an orgone emitter on a cellular level. And here's the point, guys. They can't stop you. They cannot stop you. It's not illegal. It's not something that, you know, they can even perceive effectively. Like, there's no camera that can pick up your radiant waves, your radiant lasagna waves escaping from you. And I mean, this is, I know, a very, very long recording. It's going to be a long upload, but let me just tell you this little anecdote, all right? So, you know, I have my backyard over here that has a little covered porch, and I bring my lasagna lawn chair outside, and I have a lovely view of the blue sky and like the local mountain over here. And I do my lasagna dance out there. And I start getting going on my dance, and all of these fake planes show up. And you can tell a fake plane because it is like a holographic projection. There's usually an fuzzy aura around it that to me looks kind of like slightly off color, slightly yellowish, like blue sky, but then slightly yellowish, and then the plane, which is projection. And so I start doing the lasagna dance, and all these fake planes start showing up. And it's like they just looky-loos. They can't stop you. They cannot stop you from doing what you are doing. So if you have been felt like you're a prisoner, or like you're a captive, or like you're stuck in a level of constraint that you can't deal with being here, Flying Rainbow Lasagna Dance is how you get out of the prison. And the prison guards, they can stand there and watch you and be like, look at them, like the prisoners are doing something. They're getting out of here. We don't know what they're doing, but they're somehow getting out of here. That's what you do. And for me, so I'll also tell you this, like, I've had opportunities when I could have just transcended, like, poof, like, just get out of here. And every time I make the choice and I'm like, I'm going to stick around and cause more trouble. I'm going to keep on having a body, transforming on a cellular level and emitting these radiation vibes to everyone else because I'm having a big impact on the music here. So yeah, I keep on inconveniencing them by not just poofing off into abstraction, which I think would be probably like a little bit easier and more comfortable. But I'm like, no, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to keep on dancing like a flying rainbow lasagna and screw you all. And I encourage everyone to have that attitude. Yes, that you can be this emitter. I'm trying to say, like, the CIA cannot stop you. Big Brother cannot stop you of the surveillance state. Demons on the interstices cannot stop you. Social and cultural foundations, like religious foundations, can't stop you. No one can stop you. Your mommy and your daddy and the Pope and the president, they all cannot stop you from doing this dance and transforming on an inner level. And that's the big lesson of being here, and that it doesn't cost money to do it, and that you don't have to have a special elixir in order to be able to do it. It's all done just based on your willpower. It is that jump from the 0th dimension into the 1st dimension. The 0th dimension didn't have to get anybody's permission to do it and didn't have to have a magic elixir. It just did it. Or the jump from one electron shell to the next electron shell. It's a question of getting together enough energy and making that leap of consciousness, and simply using willpower and being able to do it. Sarah Jane says, a lot of great conversation and really helpful information today. Thanks, Aurora, you're awesome. Thank you very much, SJ, you are awesome too. She's a long-term participant, so thank you for being on the lasagna journey for a long time. And Pedro says, my defense mechanism is like blades. I like this. When I get attacked, they cut and grab the energy to send back to the original owners or to power my defense mechanism. Perfect, you're doing everything right, you're doing it. Dominic says, I don't have a visual mind. I can clear thought very easy too. This is the same as when I meditate, but my mind is more like a dark snow globe that I move inside. Very interesting, and I also respect that. People have different internal experiences. So my mind is very visually based. So I see a lot of images and they come out as my paintings. And secondarily, it is, auditory, where I hear things that are tones and I organize things in terms of that. And I understand and recognize that other people have different experiences, and that's part of being in the band. We got tuba players, we got piccolo players, and everybody in between. And it's a cell specialization. So everybody is exactly who they are supposed to be. I never want people to try to copy me. I would only ever want people to be their own true self. Mandy says, if we have an experience in life of, say, eviction, you learned from it, moved on, forgave, and said never again, what made the universe repeat over and over, say 6 times? Sometimes reality is distorted. This is the real answer, is that this is not a perfect room of mirrors. This is a distorted fun house. It's not actually very fun. So if a person in a perfect room of mirrors, if you experience the same negative thing, like being evicted over and over, you'd say, why am I creating this over and over for myself? But the real answer is, sometimes you're not creating it for yourself. Sometimes some other demonic presence is very helpfully creating it for you and imposing that experience upon you. So it's highly presumptuous to say, why am I creating this over and over for myself? And sometimes that's the enzyme that you need to unlock the experience. It's like, no, you're not punching yourself in the face. Something else is punching you in the face, and now you can actually effectively fight against the thing that is constantly attacking you. So she says, so I have constantly in picture when said done with it now as a manifestor, never again then does, because it might be something else hijacking your manifestation mechanism. Is it world shake up and move on, or just shit given, even then sent to entropy? It's like Groundhog Day over and over. Yes. So I would say the answer is sometimes it is the presence of something else that is trying to hold you back, that is giving these negative experiences over and over. And that a lot of this new age stuff of law of attraction is like blame the victim stuff, just in a different package. It's like, oh, you keep getting punched in the face over and over, you're punching yourself in the face, you must deserve it somehow, as opposed to the possibility that maybe there's actually someone else in the room. Maybe there's actually someone else who is a total psychopath in the room who is punching you in the face over and over. You're not punching yourself in the face. A psychopath who's not you is in the room with you and is punching you in the face over and over. And once you realize that's reality, then you can effectively fight against the psychopath. Dominic says, I just answered his question. That is good. Okay. Pedro says, he only asked for one, Pedro says, I only ask permission from one person, me. And that is the ideal of what we're heading towards. Just like I said, I'm not a Luciferian, and I'm not promoting the Luciferian doctrine of apotheosis, which is where you say, like, God does not exist. Ego is the only thing that exists. So I'm going to elevate my ego to the point of divinity. That's not what we're talking about. But what we are talking about is the connection to one's own divinity inside, not an external authority figure, and saying, my divine guidance inside of me tells me what I need to do. And that's why I never want to interpose myself between anybody. and their own divine guidance. I don't want anybody to be like, okay, Aurora says I have to only do flying rainbow lasagna in this way, and I'm only allowed to do these patterns, and I have to paint my painting like this. No, I don't want anyone in the world to ever do that. I want everyone in the world to say, I am free to connect with my own divinity, and Aurora gives inspiration and templates about how to do it, and then I take those ideas and run with them. I do my own music in my own way. So yeah, if someone, I might play the piano, but you might be inspired to play the guitar or the flute or the harp or completely percussive instruments, whatever. You play your own thing in your own way and play your own melody. And that's also way more fun for me, because that way I get to be surprised by other people that are coming up with their own music, their own inventions, their own innovations, their own approach to life. And I'm like, that's the same ideas, but coming through a different direction. It becomes fun and interesting. It would be very, very boring and predictable if everything was all about, you know, just carbon copies of me and my approach. So Pedro also says, plus the sun has a Merkaba to protect it. Yes, yes, yes. The sun has its own Merkaba, and I put Merkaba protections around every single little photon particle that comes off of the sun, because every one of those photons is a potential of consciousness, and I begin protecting it all. And this means it can't be hacked, can't be disrupted or misapplied in any way, and all of the light goes where it's supposed to go. So those photons are supposed to go over there, and they all go to where they're supposed to go, as opposed to being hijacked into these interstices or hell realms and diminished. Pedro says, I can stay the extra time if we don't tax too much of your vocal cords. You can tell it takes a lot to do so much talking. Thank you for understanding. Joelle says, when I was a little girl, I would lie awake at night with the thoughts on struggling to keep my eyes open, because when I closed them, I would see crazy colors and shapes and faces looking at me. Very interesting. I wish I had the understanding to not be afraid of this and had someone like you, Aurora, to remind me that there weren't demons in the ether trying to get me. If I opened my mind, growing up in the church, we were told that meditation let demons in and that mind abilities were evil. Yeah. So I think that's a lot of the things when we start to awaken our higher powers. Sometimes there are very deeply ingrained childhood prescriptions against certain things. Like you're not allowed, just like owning your body. Just like sometimes the church will say like, hey, you're not allowed to stick out your chest that much. You're not allowed to, you know, like present your breasts to the world, or you're not allowed to whatever, like, you know, like be your true self, you know, like walk down the street. You're walking in a way that's too suggestive. The church will also say, hey, you're not allowed to use your higher faculties. Like you're not allowed to see the future. You're not allowed to know about diseases. Like sometimes you can just look at someone and know like that guy's got a kidney problem. That guy's got toenail fungus. Like sometimes you just know. And the Catholic Church has looked at that like it is some aberration or some witchcraft or something that is not allowed for a long time. So all of this is diminishing your true potential. You should be able to be as big as you want to be and be unabashed and unconstrained, and you shouldn't have to worry about someone else attacking you because of your natural attributes. And that is one of the biggest things that many people that have a natural, you know, open third eye, and they can see through time, they can talk to the dead or dead ancestors, they can perceive, you know, multidimensionally. A lot of the times they get horribly attacked. And I think that they have experiences that would be labeled paranoid schizophrenia, but that it's not merely some random misfirings in the brain. I really think that it is someone that has a natural psychic ability that is being intentionally diminished by being overloaded with, you know, too many voices, too many distractions, too many whatevers. So I think that there is a lot of that going on. This is going to be the super long upload, like of 3 hours. And I think that I will save level 2 stuff for next week and continue, like I'll answer the rest of these questions. And then, yes, I think that it's, I will save, basically, I think I got most of the highlights. What I had written down on my notebook are the idea that the galactic center is acting through the stellar network is acting through your DNA. So at that point, when we start to take responsibility and we understand that your DNA is vibrating like a string and affecting sympathetically all the other strings that are down here, what is coming through your strings? That's the real question. And the what that is coming through your strings are thoughts from the great brain. The great brain, much greater than my little organic brain here. And I will tell you guys all this too. So my brain here in this little body is a little bit, you know, damaged. Hold on a minute. There's neurological damage from the attack that Prill killed, the previous occupant. And instead of just doing all of my calculations and thinking in, the areas where there's damage, sometimes I'll use the great brain. I'll be like, it's like if you can't do some computer program on your computer, but you can connect to the internet and you can get it done through connecting to the entire network. That is what I do with some of these complex processes, including the process of doing the flying rainbow lasagna dance, which could be considered doing complex calculations, like putting together more and more complex variables. I'm not doing that with my organic brain. At this point, I'm doing it with my energetic or consciousness connection to a much, much larger brain. That is the brain that is evidenced in the stars. So yes, so I'm not just thinking with my little fleshy brain here, I'm thinking with the whole stellar network up there. And it's what we're supposed to be doing. Dominic says, is the moon involved in all this? Any views on the coming eclipse? Yes, the moon is absolutely involved. And it's much more like what people think when they say it's an artificial or hollowed out thing that was put in place there and is like a recycling center for your souls. Yeah, it's not necessarily this wonderful natural object that's the natural complement to the sun, and that it's affecting your reproductive cycle and the tides and everything like that. Like that would be wonderful if it was just that. Unfortunately, yes, there are all of these things that are like the limitations that are preventing humans from being completely free and having their higher faculties completely activated, and that's one of them. But that's also, like I said, all bets are off because of flying rainbow lasagna. So all the things that used to be constraints, I call it tractor beam for the soul. The idea that when you die and you exit, the soul or spirit is exiting the physical body, that a tractor beam can be placed on that non-physical aspect of self and actually put it in places where it wouldn't have flowed naturally. That's what we're talking about when people say that they hate being recycled and that they wish that they could go into, and it happens in many different ways. It happens to recycle souls within a particular lineage. That relates to what I was talking about in my own particular family experience. Yeah, you're not supposed to always be born into the same lineage. Like, whatever, if you're part of the royal house of Windsor, but you're a spirit, why in the world would you keep on being born into that same lineage? Like, just, bouncing down the time tunnel. Like, you wouldn't. One time you would be born as a royal in the House of Windsor, but then another time you might be born as a peasant, whatever, living in Namibia. And then another time you would be born in Scotland. Like, that's the whole point. You're supposed to have a variety, a mosaic of experiences, but this tractor beam for the soul has been artificially moving the puzzle pieces on the chessboard and making it like, oh yes, you're going to be in this lineage and you're going to bounce down there. And it also has to do with escaping responsibility, that people are supposed to have to face the consequences of their actions when they were embodied in the physical flesh, and that would determine the trajectory of your spirit or your soul or where you're going. It should be based on, like, you earn a righteous body from righteous deeds, right? That's how it's supposed to be. However, what we are experiencing up until this point now, but we can fly rainbow lasagna, but up until this point, it was artificially controlled by dark magic. So it was more a question of befriending the controllers of the system and getting them to give you a favorable outcome than overtly earning that favorable outcome through your actual actions. So it's just like saying, instead, to pass the test, you don't have to study and learn and actually become smarter to pass the test. You have to give the teacher an apple and make sure that the teacher likes you. And then the teacher will be like, yes, I pat you on the head, red check mark, you get to pass the test. So that's what people do when they make contracts with these satanic or demonic beings. They're basically saying, I'll do what you want me to do, and you just give me to pass me on the test and let me graduate and go to the next place. And yeah, it's not the way it's supposed to be. It's a corrupt system. So yeah, what about the eclipse that's coming up? We shall have to see. We go through these subsequent events. Every day is a portal. Every day there are these profound opportunities for transformation of consciousness. And sometimes they coincide with an actual eclipse or an actual alignment, but sometimes it's just happening and I can feel it. Like when I was literally like doing a kitchen chore, standing in my kitchen, and I'm like, oh, I just felt reality shift. Something just happened. Like, we're in a lucid dream. It's like that. Things are going to keep on changing and shifting. So it's not only connected to the eclipse, but definitely it is eclipse. It's connected. They're doorways, they're portals. It's happening. Ben says, have been ingesting additional info through Bruce Lipton. Good. Greg Braden. Joe Dispenza, I don't know him. Has been helpful to solidify concepts you describe. such as FRL, epigenetics, immortality, sending love and healing intention for whole brain health. Thank you very much. I happily accept and receive all the good intentions that you send to me. And I will tell you, like, thank you very much, seriously. My inner experience, my neurological healing and whatever, it continues to happen. It continues to go on. And it's just like being an athlete of the body. Like whatever you previously could do, like you could do 10 sit-ups, then the next time you do 12, and the next time you do this. So if like my brain could do a certain number of things, I'm always trying to challenge it and to grow. And sometimes it's a physical thing, or sometimes it's, you know, a mental thing or music or whatever. But yeah, I'm always trying to grow and go in a good direction, heal and rehabilitate. And I always hold forth the capacity for like perfection, like divine perfection, where you know, I could have no diminished anything, and just total comfort. And that's what I would definitely hope for. Okay, so Joelle is saying, good question, Dominic. I've heard a lot about the lunar eclipse on Friday coming up. Yeah, but one of the things I actually would like to say is, I found in the ways that I have been misled, a lot of what it's being about is setting expectations for a goal in the near future. Like everything will be so great when that thing is going to happen. Put all of your attention, wait for that thing. And it could be in a personal life, or that QAnon thing. And now I'm disavowing it. But when it was going on and I was following it, it was always like on Friday, Monday's going to be a big day. Or, you know, on Monday, it's always like the weekend is going to be a big weekend, suicide watch. And it's that whole idea of always setting the goal a few days in the future or a few months in the future. So that's what I learned were ways that I was being manipulated, either by physical embodied beings or non-physical, non-embodied beings. So now I don't set my expectations on some mythical day in the future. Either December 21st, 2012, like so many people were ready for some big thing to happen or whatever. Now there's all people talking about the event. Like I am not a proponent of anything like that, because all of these are artificially imposed deadlines. And I think the things that I've experienced that were really profound and true just happened spontaneously. No one on a video said to me, hey, something special is going to happen on this day, but you can feel it when it happens. And sometimes for me, the release is tearful. Like I will cry. I'll be like, I feel it happening. Or sometimes it's artistic and joyful. Sometimes it's like, I sing a song and it feels like everything changes after that moment. So my big advice to anyone is, don't place your expectation on a particular calendar date or a particular prediction that is coming from any, source, internal or external. Be in the moment, because all of these really profound changes, I find they happen spontaneously in the moment. Like I'm telling you, I can't remember if I was like chopping vegetables. I was doing something in the kitchen. And I'm like doing my thing, and I felt it happen. I literally felt my improved timeline and my shift of consciousness, and it just happened spontaneously. I didn't have to force it. I didn't have to try it. It wasn't marked on the calendar. It just unfolded. And I think that that's what, and it's also the spontaneity of jazz composition, so that things aren't too predictable. We're in this quantum world of jazz improvisation that's very unpredictable. So when I hear things from someone, some blogger that's like, the event will happen on July 26th. I'm like, okay, like I'm sure it will be a special day, because special things happen every day. P.S. July 26th is tomorrow. That's my birthday. So it's my physical birthday of my physical body. So I'll see if I can do something fun on my birthday. So let me get to the rest of the questions, then I think I'll wrap this up and do the long upload. Pedro says, I can't send you an apple, Rainbow Teacher, but I can send you love and America Va. Happily accept your apple, but I'll tell you this, you don't have to just give like kiss up to the teacher in order for me to pass you on the test. Like it's not that type of thing. I'm more like preparing you for college entrance exams, where I'm like, okay, like that movie Stand and Deliver, where he's like, getting everyone to learn math so that they could pass their tests, so that they could go on to college and everything like that. That is how I feel like my teaching style is like here, where I'm like, okay, here are all the essentials that we need to learn, and we need to get this together on this, and then it's time to, face the challenge. And then with all the things that you've been inspired from this class, it's like you have the tools in your tool belt to be able to face the oncoming challenges. So because whatever, if I were a teacher where I could determine whether people passed the test or they graduated from life or whatever, I'd have to be tough but fair, because that's the way I was when I was a live-in nanny. I'm like, okay, I'm tough, but I'm fair. Like I'm going to set these rules and then we're going to follow these rules. So that's how I would have to do it. So Dominic said, I heard today that the moon would be the transmitter and controller, and Sol would be the mother, father energy, and Eclipse would have the transmitter being behind Earth, so it will transmit our present energy to Sol. So would it be a good time to FRL? Yes, it would be a good time to FRL. And my motto is pretty much, it's always a good time to FRL. And I have FRL'd in the most unbelievable, difficult circumstances, and it always is like the most euphoric, best thing. It's like, imagine like you're driving through hell, literally. Oh my goodness, we had like horrible forest fires here in December, and we had to evacuate. And I was with Cheeky was on my lap. I was driving this truck that I had borrowed from someone with all my artwork loaded up in it, and there were flames on both sides of the highway, and it was literally like driving through hell. And I did the flying rainbow. Me and Cheeky were like, we're gonna flying rainbow lasagna through this, and that is what I did. And it was like you can transform, you can do flying rainbows on you under the most unbelievably difficult circumstances, but you can also do it in a very happy, you know, relaxed way. Because sometimes I do it here in my living room and I've got like a little, you know, drink of juice and it's very comfortable and nice and I put on nice music. So it can be done under any circumstance. It's always appropriate to flying rainbow lasagna in response to all of life's ups and downs. So let me end the recording for right now. Let me end the recording for today, actually. It's been a very long one. And thank you for everyone, your wonderful comments and your wonderful questions and insights. I profoundly appreciate. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who took the time to watch this long video and also the long one from last week.